What's up everyone? How are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto bedroom was marked as a hidden live safe house and women kept arriving? If you enjoy this video then please like, share and do comment and also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. So let us start the story.
You wanted to see me, Grandma Tsunade? A voice sounded. A blonde-haired, blue-eyed man walked into the Hokage's office, supporting his orange and black jumpsuit. His hands were buried in his pockets and even though it was late, he was still wearing his headband. Tsunade looked up from her stack of papers with a grim expression. Yes, Naruto. The blonde walked further into the office and stopped a few feet from her desk. All the while, Tsunade crossed her fingers together on her desk. I was told to have you escorted to the meeting room when you arrived. A bit confused, he asked, why? Tsunade sighed and uncrossed her hands before she stood up. All I know is that the elders want to have a meeting with you present. Naruto narrowed his blue eyes. All his confusion presented earlier disappeared. He didn't say anything. Come on, Naruto, let's get to the meeting room and be over with it. By the look she was expressing, Naruto could tell she didn't want to go either and that something bad was going to happen. The two walked quietly down one of the many hallways. Tsunade had took the lead while Naruto hung back a step or two. The walk didn't take that long and within a couple of minutes, the two blondes stood in front of a door marked, Elders. Tsunade glanced at Naruto before opening the door and walked in. The room was a medium-sized room, almost like a living room. In the center of the room were two couches facing each other and had a coffee table in between them. The walls were painted a dark red and had long blue curtains draping down to cover the windows. When Naruto made it into the room, he frowned. Why were his former teachers Iruka-sensei and Kakashi, and Master Jiraiya, doing here? Jiraiya was leaning against one of the walls, furthest away from the center of the room. He had his eyes closed and his arms crossed at his chest. Kakashi stood next to him with one foot propped up on the wall to support his weight while reading one of his make-out tactics books. Iruka stood right behind one of the couches, the empty one, and was looking off to the left, looking bored but nervous. Now, sitting on the empty couch, was the two old people, one male and the other female. The two oldest people in the Hidden Leaf Village, Kaharu Utatane, girl, and Homura Mitokado. Boy, as if doing it a million times, though she probably has, Tsunade walked straight to the empty couch and plopped herself down. She didn't care about sitting up straight or acknowledging anyone in the room. Naruto, on the other hand, closed the door behind him and walked slowly over to where Iruka stood. Alright, can we get this meeting started already? Tsunade asked, annoyed. Jiraiya opened his eyes and Kakashi looked up from his book with his one visible eye. The two elders, who were watching Naruto with a disgusted look, looked at Tsunade. You should not address your elders that way, even if you're the Hokage, Tsunade. Homura stated in a calm voice. Tsunade just rolled her eyes. Well, as you know, we are having a meeting to discuss a problem that has been growing for quite some time now. Kaharu sat up a bit straighter as she started the meeting. And what kind of problem is there? Jiraiya asked lazily. Homura, as quick as lightning, flickered his eyes to Naruto then right back to Jiraiya. Oh, I think you know. Being thankful that he had Kyuubi's sighting, Naruto noticed the look. He blinked his eyes a few times in disbelief. Wait, are you saying I'm the problem? The elders looked to him, but before either one of them could reply, Tsunade did. Whatever you're thinking, don't. Naruto is a part of this village. Her voice was dangerously low. I'm sorry, Tsunade, but we've had this demon far too long in our village. It's time for it to either leave or die. Kaharu said, unaffected by the Hokage's tone. He has been a part of this village since the day he was born. We are not throwing Naruto out. Like Tsunade, Jiraiya's voice was low and dangerous. Whatever demon you're talking about, never refer it to Naruto. He isn't the demon, the thing inside him is. Homura looked at them with piercing blue eyes. Now don't you start speaking that way either, Jiraiya. And as far as I'm concerned, you shouldn't be saying anything at all. He said, referring to how the Toad Sage always left his village. But before Jiraiya could respond, Iruka did. If you won't let Master Jiraiya speak, then allow me. What he says is true. The demon is not Naruto, it is Kyuubi. Now Iruka, Homura tried to soothe him by his words. Remember your parents. That beast, he pointed in Naruto's direction. The blonde glared at him but kept quiet. Killed them. Do you still want him here? No more than half a second later, Iruka gave them his reply. Yes. Both elders blink in surprise, though they quickly dismissed their reaction. Yes. I know that Naruto has everything under control. Just because he has a demon in him doesn't make him one. In fact, it makes him opposite of a demon. A man who's loving, good, and fun to be around. Naruto has always been trying his best to show others that he is nothing like a demon. He helps change people for the better. If it wasn't for Naruto, this village wouldn't be the same. He looked next to him and smiled at the blonde. You can say all the good things about him, but we have already decided to cast him out. Kaharu replied. She watched as Tsunade directed a glare at her. You cannot just make something up. As Hokage, you have to confront me first, and I'll say what can go. Now when Tsunade got mad, she got mad. Everyone who knew her by confronting her or meeting her or just heard of her, knew that she had a bad temper. And I don't mean as yelling. She liked to get physical and punch and throw things. Naruto watched as all of his friends, or teachers, stood up for him, risking being respectful to the elders. Though they probably didn't care if they're nice or mean to them, they deserved it. He bit his bottom lip. What's wrong, kid? A silky voice asked in his head. They're all risking everything for me. And, isn't that a good thing? Naruto hesitated. Well, yeah, but what? Kyuubi asked. When Naruto didn't answer back, she sighed. What are you going to do? Before Naruto could think back to the nine-tailed fox, Tsunade's voice broke his train of thought. Naruto has made this his home. Casting him out is like casting the fourth Hokage out. A flicker of surprise crossed both of the elders' face. The fourth did everything in his power to keep our village safe and out of danger. He sealed the fox in his own child because he knew that Naruto would be able to keep it tamed. He died saving this village. Is that not enough? Before he died, his last words were to make sure everybody saw the good in Naruto and not the bad. He didn't want people to look and know him as the nine-tailed fox that killed most of our ninja. What you're doing now, you are not respecting his wish. Tsunade finished and waited for the elder's reply. Finally, after several silent moments, Homura sighed. I am sorry, but we've made up our minds. The fourth did what had to be done, but that still won't change people's mind about the fox staying in the village. Tsunade stood up. You are sick, do you not? Enough! Naruto yelled. Everyone in the room looked to the blonde, surprise clearly shown on their faces. I've heard enough. Kakashi lowered his book and looked interested, though outraged that the elders were throwing his own student out. Naruto, Tsunade spoke softly like she was telling him bad news, but Naruto cut her off. No, Ba-chan. Thank you for everything you've done, but, if there are people here that do not think it's safe, then it's best if I leave. Naruto had his eyes trained on Tsunade. He gave her a smile, even though the smile never quite reached his eyes. Beside him, his hands were curled into fists. Screw what the other people think, Naruto. You are trained with the proper, Jiraiya started, but again, Naruto cut him off with a shake of his head. Pervy sage, you don't have to. All my life, I always tried to get people to like me for me. I actually thought I made it, but there are still people who don't. Naruto's voice drops to an icy tone as he addressed the elders next. You made a mistake, but, as you want, I'll leave. For the first time since the meeting had started, Kakashi closed his book. Naruto, there's no need to do this. We will find a way out of this mess. Naruto shook his head without looking at his old sensei. Nah, that's okay, Kakashi, but can you tell Sakura and Sasuke nothing about this? I don't want them knowing I was banished. Yes, what about Sasuke, Naruto? You just got him back. If you leave, hell will break loose. Tsunade tried. What happens if you run into Orochimaru or the Akatsuki? The blonde just shrugged. I'll either fight or flee. But that's suicide, Iruka argued. Well, that won't be your concern anymore. Naruto said sadly. He looked at all of his senior friends before finally resting a glare on the elders. Kaharu looked calm by all what had happened. She spoke with no resentment or happiness. Glad that you see this our way. But now, I want you to know, Naruto Uzumaki, that when you leave the village, you are to never come back. If you do so, or step over our borders, then you will be executed. When you leave, you will be a Rouge ninja. Naruto just nodded his head before lowering it and turning on his heel to leave. Naruto, don't. Tsunade whispered. Her voice almost broke his heart, but he doesn't let it show. The nine-tailed fox child doesn't turn around as a shadow covered his eyes. Sorry, Ba-chan, but don't make things harder than it seems. He starts walking towards the door. As he gripped the handle and pulled the door open, Jiraiya spoke up. Hey kid, be careful out there. Remember everything I taught you and I'll be seeing you. Naruto turned around a bit. Tsunade had tears in her eye, as did Iruka. Both Jiraiya and Kakashi stayed strong, but their eyes were expressing sorrow. I will, pervy sage. Naruto Uzumaki, age 20, turned around and walked away from his comrades and walked away from his life. 4 days later, a blonde ninja stood next to the three Sand siblings, Kankuro, Temari, and Gaara. Right after Naruto's banishment, the blonde had gone straight to his apartment, packed a few belongings such as food, clothing, a blanket, other important items, and 4 photos. After packing, he quickly departed his home village and settled out on going to the Sand village. He ran all day, through the night, and the next day without stopping. He knew that if he had stopped, he would have broken down crying, so he pushed himself until he got to the village. When he had got to the village, he had a stone-hard face and luckily for him, Gaara was by the entrance of his village when he had spotted the familiar blonde. They banished you? How stupid could they get? Kankuro yelled as he paced the room. The 3 Sand ninjas, plus Naruto, were all in the council meeting room. They were all alone, seeing how this was no one else's business but theirs. Gaara was sitting in his chair, the one for the cage, with Temari standing off to his left side. Naruto was in the chair next to the two, while Kankuro was still pacing. Naruto shrugged. I kind of already saw it coming. His voice wasn't its normal cockiness and full of life, but one full of pain. I just didn't expect it to happen so soon. He tried not to feel sadness about the dramatic change in his life, but it was rather hard. He would never get to see his friends and village again. But, if you expected this, why didn't you do anything about it? Temari asked, slightly confused. Again, the blonde just shrugged. What was there I could have done? Tell Tsunade? As if she didn't have enough on her plate as it is. Try to figure it out on my own? Yeah, you've seen where it brought me. He sulked. Gaara spoke his normal, soft but stern tone. You could have contacted us. We could have done something. The feeling of tears threatened to form in Naruto's blue eyes. No, I couldn't have. You 3 already have. You don't get it. Kankuro stopped his pacing and slammed his hands on the table. Naruto looked at his enraged face. We respect you, Naruto, after everything you've done. You helped Gaara after the Chunin exam. You know how Gaara feels more than anyone else. Was it not for you, we wouldn't be who we are today. Naruto, you mean so much to us. We will always be there for you. Temari added much more gently than her brother. She sent him a look that meant to control yourself. Naruto smiled. Thanks Kankuro, Temari. At least. He doesn't finish his sentence, but the Sand siblings could already guess what he was going to say. The insides of him were calming down a bit, glad that he still had people to look after him and a new place to call home. Kankuro nodded and his face relaxed from his angered expression. He pushed off the table and stood next to his sister. It stayed quiet for a while. No one knew what to say, so they acknowledged each other's presence by staying quiet. Naruto looked around the room, seeming to relax. Today's events had tired him out, running for hours without stopping to take a break as he ran from his ex-village to the Sand. He let out a breath of air as his memories switched back to the meeting. Finally, Gaara broke the calm silence and broke Naruto's train of memories, as he spoke. So now that you have a place to call home, what will you be doing? Yes, what will you be doing, Kit? Kyuubi purred. So she had been listening to everything that was going on. Answering both questions, Naruto shrugged. I was thinking about traveling, meeting new people and reuniting with old. Go training, help people out. But you are coming back. It wasn't a question but a statement. Gaara watched as Naruto finally smiled one of his signature grins. Of course. I can't stay too far from my home. A man of 22 jumped from one tree branch to another. He wore long orange pants with his same style black boots. He had on a black muscle shirt that couldn't be seen under his long sleeve, orange and black jacket. The man never changed his appearance from when he still lived in the village hidden in the leaves, except for having no headband and wore a long orange overcoat that went past his knees. On the bottom of the overcoat was red and black flames that had the effect that the flames were licking its way up, same on the sleeves that went a little past his elbows. The man's hair had grown a bit so that it now hung in his eyes, but it was the same blonde, spiked-up hair, but now, it looked as if someone had dipped the ends in blood. All the tips were a royal color of red. "So Kit, what do you want to do now?" A voice popped into his head. "Well, since I've been gone for more than 3 months, I thought it might be nice to visit home." Naruto thought back to Kyuubi. "I'm pretty sure Gaara wants to know that I'm still alive." In his mind, he watched the giant fox stand up and stretched before sitting back down. She yawned before replying back, "Not only that, but you want to show him you're new just you?" Naruto frowned and aloud, he responded back, "You know I can't do that. If I were to summon you Kyuubi, then Shukaku would try to loosen his imprisonment within Gaara. They too aren't as friendly as us." Kyuubi sighed. Well, it was worth a try. He chuckled and pushed off of a tree branch, launching himself through the air. Yeah, I've been training for those 3 months to summon you without any trouble, and you want to be let out to cause trouble. What am I going to do with you? Well, I wouldn't say cause trouble, Kit, more like have a snack or two." The blonde frowned. I don't think so. I made great terms with the Sand Shinobi and I don't really intend to break feet." Kyuubi just sent a toothy grin to her host before letting out another yawn and lying her head down on her paws. Naruto stopped and landed on a tree branch to catch his breath. He stood and examined his surrounding as his thoughts swarms his head. A lot has happened since he was banished from his home. He lived with the Sand siblings in the land of the Sand, but he was always traveling. He never stayed in one place for too long. When the blonde traveled, he always visited some of his old friends that he helped years ago on missions when he was still a part of Squad 7. He would stay with them for a while before leaving to travel again. When he doesn't have anyone to visit, he usually went back to the Sand or went to a wide open plain where you couldn't find a town for at least 100 miles radius to train. Naruto usually just trained with another clone of his or, if he truly wanted to fight, summon Kyuubi in a smaller form. To summon Kyuubi took a lot of chakra. There was many hand signs to remember and a chant that had to be said once. If he messed up anywhere when performing the hand signs, he got knocked out for a few days. Sometimes, it even lasted up to a week. It all just depended on which fox he was trying to summon. It took him over a year to perfection the summon and to keep it maintained. There are a lot of different summoning he could do. Summon an average size fox, resembling the actual 9-tailed fox who had powerful attacks. A different type of fox that was the size of a baby elephant or a small car that had the chakra look to it. And when Naruto goes into the 4th-tailed fox, he has that chakra look to him. And the last one, his and Kyuubi's most favorite, summoning the actual fox. True, Naruto still had the seal on his tummy, concealing the fox within him, but the blonde-haired genius found a way around it without breaking it. When he brings the fox out, whichever one it is, a part of it stays inside the teen, even if the fox looks complete. So, let's say he brought the entire fox out. You can see the fox looking real and everything, which she is, but a fraction of her is still in Naruto, if that makes sense. Anyways, as easy as summoning the fox out, it was 10 times easier to send her right back into him. To beckon Kyuubi forth took many hand signs, but to send her back was as easy with only one hand sign. What I'm trying to say, it's very easy to put her back in jail if she was misbehaving. Yeah, if that doesn't make sense, tell me. Now summoning Kyuubi wasn't Naruto's only new jutsu. Oh no, he had many others. Well, not that many, but some. Take his Rasengan for an example. Yes, it was powerful, but under his own training methods, made it even stronger and powerful. There are many others, but they'll come up sooner or later. Now, you're probably wondering what happened to Naruto's old village, Konoha. They're still there, still staying strong and missing a certain blonde. When Naruto left, everyone noticed immediately, who wouldn't? Someone as loud as him? They, meaning Naruto's friends, asked Tsunade about it, but she would never tell them the truth. All she would tell them was that Naruto Uzumaki left and wasn't coming back. Somehow, after several days of complaining, Sakura managed to pry some of the important details out of her sensei. Tsunade only told the Pinkette the major things like the elders banished him and that he wasn't allowed to come back. She never did tell her apprentice that if the blonde were to come back, he'd die, or the exact reason the elders banished him. But most people guessed the reason why the elders banished him. Now, when Sakura heard the news, Her heart broke like it did when Sasuke had left to go with Orochimaru. And when she told her only teammate left, Sasuke, boy, did hell almost break loose. He demanded the elders that Naruto was to come back, but they refused. The Raven was so furious that he gathered a group of his and Naruto's close friends to go search for him and bring him back, but both Kakashi and Jiraiya stopped them. There was nothing that could be done. Flashback. About a year back, before Naruto changed his appearance, he was at a little town in the land of mist and fog, having a drink when he ran into an old friend. Jiraiya. They were both surprised, but happy. The two sat down and talked for a good 3 hours. They talked about Naruto's like, what was going on with him, talked about Jiraiya's book, and about Naruto's friends. They really miss you, you know. Jiraiya had said, I know, but there isn't much I or any of them could have done. The blonde looked down at the clay cup of tea his hands were wrapped around. Jiraiya snorted, causing the blonde to look up. Naruto, there was a lot you could have done, but you didn't. You could have shown those lazy elders that you belonged in the village. You could. I could have what? Naruto yelled. I could have done so much but none of it would have mattered, Jiraiya. His hands tightened around the cup until it broke, tea spilling everywhere. A light red chakra started to spew from the man, but Jiraiya and him ignored it. No matter what I did, or would have done, the elders would still have banished me. The book writer crossed his arms against his chest. No, they wouldn't have. The day of the meeting, what Kakashi had said, he meant it. We would have helped you find a way to overcome the elders. They didn't have a right to take you from your home. I did what was right. The blonde looked away, glaring at some people who looked over to the two with curious expressions. Once seeing the glare and red chakras still radiating off of the boy, they quickly looked away. You may have done what you thought right, Naruto, but what about everyone else that cared about you? Jiraiya's voice softened a bit. You don't know what it's been like for them, especially for Sasuke and Sakura. Sakura just got her missing teammate back, just to lose another. Do you know what it's been like for them? How can a Anbu captain focus on his work and protecting his village when he's worried about his friend? Naruto let an angry sigh out. It wasn't my choice to leave. I could have left the village quietly, or been forced out. No matter what, pervy sage, I had to leave. Why won't you understand that? Said man looked like he was about to argue, but Naruto quickly continued. What's been done has been done. It's time to not live in the past anymore. I didn't want to change how I was just to please a few people. The people there didn't feel safe with a demon child living in the village. The red glow slowly started to dissolve away from him. Like I said before, Naruto, it doesn't matter what they think. The blonde slammed his fists onto the table and stood up, the red glow quickly coming back. His face was a mixture of rage and sorrow. You don't know what it's like to grow up and always having people hate you. To have a whole village hate you. I was lucky to gain friends and felt like I finally belonged somewhere. But, even then, the villagers still hated me. I'm sick and tired of it. So you're happy that you left. It wasn't a question but a statement. Naruto closed his eyes. Halfly. I wanted to leave to get away from them, but, he said, referring to the people of the village that hated him. Then I'd miss everyone. I miss my friends, my home. He sighed. But I can't go back. Jiraiya just nodded. It's your own option, Squirt. Just promise me one thing. Naruto opened his eyes and raised an eyebrow. What? The Toad Sage opened his eyes too. If you ever have a problem, find me or Tsunade or me. I don't care what the others say, just come to us. End of flashback. Kit. Hey Kit. The sound of Kyuubi's growling broke Naruto out of his memory world. He blinked a few times to find himself still standing on a tree branch. What's wrong, Kyuubi? Naruto asked aloud. The fox had been pacing and growling in his mind. About time. Anyways, about a mile from here, there are a group of bandits. It seemed that they just slaughtered a village. The blonde grimaced. Even though this was how Naruto earned money, helping villages kill bandits that robbed them, he never liked it. Sure, helping the villages was nice, but he hated it when the group of bad men slaughtered innocents just to get new stuff. Alright, which direction? Northwest, 2.6 miles from here. As soon as the fox gave the direction, Naruto vanished from the tree branch and ran as fast as he could towards the bandits. As he was running, Kyuubi asked, why must we do this? It's so annoying. The blonde sighed before answering, we do this because it's not fair for the villagers. And, I also do this for the good of the people. If the bandits are dead, the other villages will be safe. The fox just rolled her eyes. Within minutes, Naruto came to a stop behind a large, rounded tree. On the other side of the tree was a camp. Tents were up, but only a few of them were in use. A few horses were relaxing off to the side while someone was attending to them. On the other side of the clearing were huge bags full of goodies, probably from the villages. Now, in the middle of the camping grounds, was a group of people. Well, men to be exact, seeing as there was no presence or sightings of a female anywhere. There must have been at least 20 guys, all lounging around a fire. They all had plates of food or a cup of what Naruto guessed as wine. Some of the men looked a bit buzzed. One of the men, dressed in a filthy, what looked to be a white shirt, black pants, open-toed sandals and a lot of jewelry, rings, necklaces, etc., was lying back in a chair that looked of royalty, eating something. He looked up from his now empty plate and barked out, "Hey! Where's my next meal?" A girl, no more than 11 years old, walked into view. She was wearing a filthy, torn dress that came way above her knees. From where Naruto stood, he could make out all of the scars, open, bleeding gashes, and bruises she received. Some of them looked old, perhaps a week or two old, while others looked fresh. The girl had long, brown hair that went to her waist. She was slender, maybe a little too slender, and pretty tall. But what made Naruto really notice her, was the chains around her wrists and neck. They were like handcuffs, but with an added part. The cuff around her neck was connected to the chains around her wrists. She's their slave," Naruto whispered in disbelief and disgust. It wasn't rare to see bandits take slaves, but that didn't mean Naruto still had to like it. "What are you going to do?" Kyuubi asked. Naruto couldn't tell what her voice represented, anger, surprised, sick to the stomach? The blonde glared as he watched the girl deliver the plate to the man who yelled. The man greedily took the plate, then shoved the girl out of the way. She didn't do anything, but stood a bit off to the side with her head bowed low so that she was looking down at the ground. Naruto clenched his hands into fists. "I'm going to teach them a lesson." As soon as the words left his mouth, he disappeared in a gust of wind. "Hey, get me some more beer," the same man from before yelled. He scratched his budging tummy with one hand as he held his other out with the empty mug. The girl came running over to take the mug but was stopped. Standing before her was a man she's never seen before. He has bright blonde hair with the tips dyed blood red, an orange and black jumpsuit and a black overcoat that had red and black flames at the bottom. "Hey, didn't you hear me?" the man yelled viciously. Being unaware that a newcomer had arrived, he shook his mug impatiently in the air. "You know, it's rather rude to yell at a lady," Naruto said. He grabbed the man's wrist and twisted it hard, making him let the mug go. Startled and in pain, the man turned around, finally aware of the newcomer. "Who the fuck are you?" he lashed out. From his startled cry, the man's men all looked up from whatever they were doing. They all glared at the blonde as they got to their feet and grabbing for their weapons that lay next to them. "My name doesn't concern you," Naruto replied, his voice cold but rather calm. "But what does concern me is that you slaughtered a village and took one as your slave," he said, pointing to the frightened girl behind him. The man looked from the blonde to the girl then back to him. He sneered then said, "I didn't take her, moron, she is my daughter." The hand around the man's wrist tightened and a dark red glow started to illuminate off the blonde. Some of the men backed away but not very far. The man in front of Naruto had fear flash through his eyes but it quickly passed, taking its place was a cold glare. "What the, let me go," the man yelled trying to pull away. But Naruto continued to glare at him and hold his wrist tightly. The red chakra started to come out in waves now. The man took one last look at the blonde before looking back at his men, yelling, "Well, what are you waiting for, an invite? Attack him already." The men immediately let out a battle cry and ran at Naruto, raising their weapons. Being used to battles, Naruto let the man go and spun around, taking the girl into his arms. The girl didn't move or say anything as Naruto pushed off the ground and high into the trees above them. He landed on a branch and gently set the girl on her feet. "Stay here," he whispered. The little girl nodded. She clutched her hands against her chest as if in a worried way, which he was, and took a step back. Naruto nodded before jumping off the branch and landing exactly where he had been seconds ago. The attackers were in a circle waiting for the blonde to come down. And right when he did, they all, at the same time, launched their attacks. Swords and axes were swung at the blonde as he dodged them and brought a kunai knife out. The men around him started laughing. A tiny knife? What's that going to do? Make a tiny cut. The blonde smirked at the man's stupidity and brought out another kunai from his pouch on his left hip. But this one was different. It had a tag connected to its end. He jumped high into the air and threw the exploding tag down at the men. The tag exploded, killing a few stunned men while injuring many. Some were lucky and smart enough to jump out of the way. "Jackass, you're going to die," one of the men yelled, causing Naruto to roll his eyes as he landed softly on the ground. Once getting back up, the men ran at the blonde, ignoring their wounds. They raised the swords and axes and other weapons up. But, knowing better, Naruto crossed his two hands forming a cross and yelled, "Shadow Clone Justu." Many of the same man started to form all around the clearing. All of the clones smirked at the confused men before the clones started to attack, each one first, pulling a kunai out of their pouches. "The hell is this?" one man yelled before getting slaughtered. Blood started to stain the perfectly green grass as the clones and men fought. When one clone was defeated by an enemy, another one took its place, followed up by another so that it was 1-on-2. Within minutes, more than half the men lay dead while the other half was badly wounded but still standing. "Hey brat, don't forget about me," the man from before, most likely the leader of the bandits, yelled. He raised his sword into the air and slashed at one of the Narutos, hoping it would be the real one. But it wasn't, it was a clone. The clone popped away. Damn it, which one is the real one? He started to slash at the other clones he came in contact with, but they too ended up being clones. "Why, keep doing that, and eventually you'll know where the real me is," a voice said from above. The man looked up just in time to be punched in the jaw. He stumbled backwards as another fist made contact with his stomach, then his other side of the jaw. As he stumbled, Naruto grabbed some kunai from his pouch and threw it at the man. The knives thrown at the man embedded themselves into his arms, legs and his throat, pinning him to the tree that was behind him. The sword dropped from his grasp and fell to the forest floor with a clang. Blood started to seep from his wounds, especially the wound in his neck. He tried to move, but was getting weak from the amount of blood he was losing. "Why?" he garbled in a low voice. Blood started to spew from his mouth in a long river-like manner. It flowed down his chin and dripped off, landing on the grass. Naruto walked up to the dying man and squatted down in front of him. "Because, you bag of shit. You slaughtered a whole village, probably countless numbers of them, took their belongings and, you abused your own daughter. That's not how a father should act. What I do to my own daughter is of none of your concern." He tried to lash out but came out more of a moan. The blonde smirked and the red chakra that continued to come off of him started to vanish. "Well, it is now." He stood back up and looked down at the helpless, dying man on the ground. "You are a bastard. I hope you rot in hell. You and many others." Naruto left the man to die as he pushed off the ground with his legs. That was so boring. Kyuubi yawned. In the background, the clones that were left poofed out of existence. There was hardly any action. Naruto doesn't say anything as he landed on the same tree branch he was on only minutes ago. Curled into a tight ball and leaning against the tree trunk was the girl. She watched him with round, green eyes that were filled with fear. The blonde walked over to her in a calm manner and squatted down next to her. In a gently voice that you'd be shocked to hear, because he just finished killing people and to be able to get it to that gently, he said, "I highly doubt you want to go down there, it's not a pretty sight." The girl's eyes peered down over the side of the branch, but when Naruto cleared his throat, she immediately flickered her eyes back to him. "If you want, I can take you to a different village. There's one a few miles from here, one where your father didn't attack." The girl shook her head. With a bony finger, she pointed it at Naruto. The blonde furrowed his eyebrows in confusion. In his head, he asked the fox, "What does she mean?" The fox, who's been paying attention, also furrowed her eyebrows. "I don't know, but I think she might want to stay with you." Naruto nodded before saying, "I'm assuming you want to stay with me?" The girl nodded her head before taking her finger back. "Why?" After a moment of silence, the girl spoke, though her voice was dry and cracked like she hadn't drunk water in a day or two. "You killed my master. Now you're my new master." Both Kyuubi and Naruto both stared at her in surprise. Boy, were they not expecting that. Master? Naruto stuttered. No, I know, I'm not going to be anyone's master. The girl's eyes doubled in size as she quickly looked away. I didn't mean to make you mad. Please, don't punish me, master. Her voice was full of fear and sorrow. Naruto couldn't help but feel sorry for her. She's most likely been having a horrible life. Life as a slave and having to live with an abusive father. He reached out to take her hand when she flinched away. The blonde sighed before gently taking a hold of hers, this time succeeding. Come on, let's get out of here first before we talk. The girl looked up at him and didn't say anything. Naruto stood up and helped the girl to her feet. Unsure what else to do, he scooped her up into his arms, bridal style, and pushed off hard against the tree, quickly disappearing from sight. The girl squeezed her eyes shut as she buried her head in Naruto's chest. He looked down at her and his heart broke more. She's scared, Kyuubi observed. I would be too if my life was like that. But how could someone treat a little girl like this? Naruto thought as he landed on a tree and pushed off of it. I don't know, kid, but what are you going to do with her? The blonde thought for a moment, thinking back, I'll drop her off at a village, but with a good family to take care of her. I can't take her with me, it's much too dangerous. The fox nodded her gigantic head. So, Naruto said aloud. My name's Naruto, Naruto Uzumaki. What's yours? The little girl opened one eye opened and looked at him. Sana. Her voice lost some of its dryness and the cracking, and in its place was a soft voice. Naruto smiled. Well, nice to meet you, Sana. And if you don't mind me asking, how old are you? Sana paused before saying, E11. Exactly what I told you, Kit. Kyuubi purred, happy that she thought the age right. Yeah, he thought before asking aloud. I don't mean to bring this up, but, did you like your father? Sana, as he expected, winced and buried her head against his chest again. I hated him, she whispered so softly, that if he didn't have Kyuubi's hearing, he would have missed it. He nodded. Well, so you didn't mind me killing him? She shook her head. After that, Naruto remained silent as he left Sana to her own thoughts. He continued to jump from tree to tree, trying to be gently with each landing. She fell asleep. Kyuubi stated after half an hour. Naruto blinked and looked down to indeed find the girl asleep. Huh, you're right, but we're almost to the town, should I wake her? Nah, it'll be easier to rid of her when she's asleep. The blonde nodded before angling his body for a landing. His feet touched the ground right outside of the town's entrance. Having the sleeping girl in his arms, he walked casually into the village as if it was his own. Naruto laid the little 11-year-old Sana on a bed. He had taken the chains off of her wrists and neck before he found a family willing to take her in. Now he started at her as she curled up into a ball on the bed, breathing softly. He couldn't help but smile. The wife, whose name escaped the blonde, spoke after he left the room. We'll look after her as if she was our own. Naruto nodded. Thank you for taking her in. You have such kind hearts. Oh please, Kyuubi rolled her eyes. The wife nodded and led Naruto out of the house. But before he left, she asked, what will I tell the child when she wakes up? That she is free and will never be owned again. The lady looked at him weirdly but shrugged her shoulders. Well, I must go now. Take care of her. With that, Naruto took off running through the town to the entrance. The lady was waving to him as she watched him go. The 22-year-old sat on a tree branch with one leg dangling over the side while the other was propped up. He rested his arm on his leg and scanned his surroundings with a sigh. You seem to be in an awfully gloomy mood today, Kit. What's wrong? Kyuubi purred, worried for him. Naruto shrugged and answered aloud. I don't know. Kyuubi stood up and sat down instead of her usual lying down. HMPH. Well, maybe you'll feel better once you get home. It must be because you're homesick. Naruto shrugged again. That could be a possibility. He has been gone longer than normal, but something in his mind told him that wasn't it. It was something more. Well, break over. Might as well go home since there's nothing else to do. He stood up and dusted off his jacket. Before he could so much as move an inch, Kyuubi's head perked up and had a hard glare set on her face. We have followed, she growled. Where? Naruto crouched low to the tree and brought a kunai out. He hated it when people started to trail him. But, if they ever find him, they were usually punched to a pulp. I can't tell. Everywhere? Her voice was full of confusion. Everywhere? That can't be possible unless it was a group of people. Naruto stated, now sensing the followed. But, as he sensed it, he realized it was only one person. He pushed his back up against the trunk of the tree and braced himself. He carefully started to watch his surroundings. The wind blew gently like it had been all day. The only change had been the sun slowly setting. Naruto stayed in his crouching position for a few minutes, his legs cramping a bit. But, he never moved except for his heart beating in its normal beat. The kunai was in a death position, only needing to swipe at the person's neck for them to be killed. Intruder almost here and they're approaching pretty fast. Kyuubi announced. Naruto slowly peeked around the tree to find more trees. No one was approaching unless they were invisible or so small that it would take a magnified glass to see them. There's no intruder, Kyuubi, he frowned and turned back around. He almost jumped a foot into the air and let a small shriek out. Crouching before him was a little girl with long brown hair and bright green eyes. Sana. She watched him with curious but hurt eyes. Sana. How? Where? How did you get here? Naruto stuttered out. He waited for her to respond but she didn't. She just simply tilted her head to the side as if confused. Okay. Why aren't you with that family? They must be worried sick that you left them. But still, she did not answer. He furrowed his blonde eyebrows. Maybe she wanted to be with you? You did save her, kid. Kyuubi also sounded confused as she eyed the girl in front of them. The blonde bit his bottom lip, considering things. Finally, after a few minutes of silence, he said, I'm guessing you want to come with me? Sana's eyes brightened and she nodded her head. Alright, but, to let you know, things might not always be safe. I'm always on the road, doing small missions like killing people. He waited for the girl to respond, but again, she didn't. Hey, are you gonna talk to me? Sana only started at him with her green orbs. She didn't speak or nod her head or even shake it. She just simply watched him. What am I supposed to do? She won't talk. Naruto thought to the fox, half irritated, half disappointed. I don't know. Maybe she's mad at you because you left her. Kyuubi guessed. But let's not dwell on the past, we should be heading home. It's getting kind of dark. Naruto nodded. Aloud, he said to Sana, well, I'm on my way home, but that's a day's trip from here if I run. But seeing as you should probably be able to keep up with me, we'll walk. Sound okay? Surprising him, she shook her head and stood up. We'll run. She spoke with such a soft voice, she reminded him of one of his friends, Hinata. She took one step away from Naruto and jumped down from the tree. The blonde raised an eyebrow. Okay, he got to his feet and jumped down from the tree. Already a few trees away from him was Sana. She was waiting for him patiently. How'd she get over there so fast? He asked Kyuubi. The fox just shrugged like she didn't care and lay back down, stretching. Mimicking her, Naruto also shrugged and ran over to Sana. Together, the two ran at a pretty fast pace. Amazing him, Sana kept up with him when the blonde doubled his speed. Who is this girl? Naruto thought to himself. No one should be able to keep up with me. The only person that could was always Gaara. Jiraiya could try to, but soon I was passing him. A few hours passed before they stopped for a break. They rested next to a huge oak tree and Sana sat down on one of its roots that was sticking out. Naruto stayed standing and crossed his arms over his chest. Where'd you learn to run like that? He asked, breaking the silence. She looked at him. I've always been able to run like that, even since I can remember. Her voice was still soft and wasn't panting. The blonde nodded before asking, do you what I am? The girl shook her head, wondering why he was asking that. I'm a ninja. Do you know what ninja are? She nodded but didn't say anything. Alright. One more question. Do you know what chakra is? Like her first answer, she shook her head. Naruto paused thinking. She has the ability to become a ninja, but she doesn't know what chakra is. From her aura, I can tell she has some, well, a lot. Weird that he's asking her that, but why not? Sana, how would you like to become a ninja? I could teach you anything you would like to know, and I take it you wanted to be traveling with me. But, if you do, I need to be able to trust you not to get killed because you didn't know anything. What do you say? Sana's eyes rounded like a kid's on Christmas. She nodded her head eagerly. Naruto smiled but looked her over. But first, we need to get you out of those clothes. Naruto and Sana had continued to run and in half an hour, they stopped at the next town. They found a clothes store and for the next hour, Sana was trying on clothes, just like any particular girl. though she was very nervous and shy and felt like she was doing something wrong. Naruto couldn't blame her after being with an abusive father. Naruto had to keep reminding the girl that it was alright and she was doing nothing wrong. Finally, without breaking Naruto's wallet, she found herself a ninja outfit. As they were leaving, Naruto holding the bags, he said, "We'll be staying here tonight. Tomorrow, while we travel, I'll teach you the basics. But, after dinner and showers tonight, I'll explain what chakra is." He glanced over at the small girl to find her looking around. At her sides, her hands were curled in fists. Strange, Naruto thought. For the next hour, Naruto checked into a hotel with nice springs. They ate supper at a ramen shop. Well, Naruto ate, and Sana played with hers but ate some of it like her stomach wasn't able to contain it, all the while with the blonde watching her. He wasn't going to take an eye off of her, 1, because he didn't trust her, cause they just met, and 2, well, he just didn't yet trust her. "So," Naruto said, finishing his ramen. Sana instantly looked up from her ramen bowl. "Let's start the lesson." He turned his to the side so it would be easier to address her. "You said you didn't know what chakra was, right? Well, to make the definition easier for you to understand, it's the energy required in order to perform ninjutsu." "What's ninjutsu?" Sana asked. Ninjutsu is." Before he could explain, Kyuubi asked, "Are you sure it's alright to teach her? What if she doesn't have what it takes to become a ninja?" "She does. If she didn't, she'll figure that out. I don't know, kid. For some reason, I don't think you should be anywhere near her. She doesn't feel right." To Naruto, it was almost rare to hear Kyuubi feel uneasy. If they were ever in a tough situation, she never sounded like this. He could count on one hand how many times Kyuubi felt uneasy and said something about it. And most of them was when he was sick and was about to be ambushed by people or was close to dying. What kind of feeling? Naruto thought, become alerted. The fox then sighed. "I'll tell you later. The girl is confused." He blinked and realized the fox was right. Sana was watching him confused eyes. To recover, he smiled his goofy trade smile and scratched the back of his head. Sorry, was just thinking about the old days." He lied. "Well, ninjutsu is like martial arts." Sana looked away feeling stupid. "Oh, I should have known that." Naruto chuckled. "Hey, don't worry about it. Some people have no clue what it is, and they are like 100 years old. But, anyways, you now know what chakra is. Come on, let's go find a nice tree to climb." He set some money on the counter for their meals and stood up. Sana followed him without a further comment. As they walked, Naruto looked over his shoulder. Sana was directly behind him with her eyes casted downward, not looking up. He noticed her still in the torn tan dress he found her in. "Hey, do you want to take a bath and change into your clothes first?" he asked. She looked up, wide-eyed, then looked down to what she was wearing. "I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to," he quickly said. But the girl shook her head. "A bath would be nice. Especially wearing something new," she said and glanced up to see if he was okay with it. The blonde nodded before changing direction and heading back towards the hotel they were staying at. Within 20 minutes, the two were cleaned and dressed. Naruto was still wearing exactly what he was wearing, but first got it washed. Sana was entirely different. Instead of wearing the filthy, torn dress, she now was wearing a black tank top, black short shorts, fingerless fishnet gloves that went up to her elbows, fishnet leggings and knee-high black boots that had a heel to them. On her right hip was a pouch containing knives, other useful thing, and a medicine kit. On her leg held all of the paper bombs. Her long brown hair had been trimmed by a lady from the springs and was now pulled up into a high ponytail. "You look great," Naruto observed when she had walked out of the changing rooms. A light pink spread across the 11-year-old girl's face. She looked down at her feet, embarrassed. Thanks." The blonde chuckled. "Come on, let's go find a tree first, then I'll explain things." As they were walking, he couldn't help but look over his shoulder. "So Sana," she looked up and met his blue eyes. "I gotta know, especially if I'm taking you under my wing. Why did you want to come with me? I don't accept people tagging along with me, so you better have a good reason." He waited for a few minutes, watching curiously as the girl's face turned from a curious expression to expressing nothing. "Like I said before, I have to follow you, you're my mater." Her voice had gone so soft, that Naruto would have missed what she said if not for his high hearing that he adapted from Kyuubi. Since he heard the answer, anger flickered across his face and his eyes turned blood red. He stopped walking. Unaware by the suddenness, Sana bumped into him. I am not your master. Naruto growled and spun around, grabbing her arms tightly. The small girl's eyes widened in terror. She tried to take a step back, but he wouldn't let her. His blood-red eyes stared into her green, and she then noticed that his pupils were slit like a cat's. Naruto kneeled down until he was at eye level with her. I never want you to think that way again, Sana. You are free to say and do what you want. You no longer have a master, nor is anyone going to be one. Do you understand? I don't want you to say that again or I will leave you in a village and won't give you time to come after me. Sana barely nodded her head. She could feel tears wanting to form, but she couldn't cry. It was against her own rule, never show true emotion. But how the blonde had yelled, scarred her so much. How could she not cry? Naruto must have noticed. His eyes averted back to his original, hard blue gaze and his grip on her softened so much that he was barely holding her. I didn't mean to be so harsh. Sometimes I forget about being gently. But just remember, feel free to speak what's on your mind. There's no one here to hurt you or to judge you. If they do, consider their asses kicked, alright? His voice softened so much that you would have thought he was a totally new person. Alright, Naruto, Sana whispered, still a bit scared. He chuckled and stood up. That's the first time you've said my name. Come on, let's go. Sana could only nod and walk after him, unsure what to feel. It was well after midnight when they stepped into a small clearing that was surrounded by trees. Naruto leaned against one of the trees and watched Sana look around and came to a stop a few feet in front of him. Your first lesson, Naruto started. Sana flickered her green eyes over to the blonde. You'll be climbing trees. Sana buried her eyebrows down in a confused way. But, I already know. With your hands, yes, Naruto interrupted. But we'll be climbing the trees with our feet using chakra. To demonstrate what he was talking about, he crossed his fingers to form a cross and pushed off the tree. Sana watched in wonder as he walked towards a different tree and started to climb up it. Being able to focus all your chakra to your feet is harder than it looks, but it's very useful in battle. By now, he walked to a high branch. Instead of standing on top of the branch, he was standing upside down with his arms crossed at his chest. How do you do that? Sana asked, very surprised and looked eager to learn. Naruto smiled. You have to build enough stamina necessary to complete your task once the chakra has been focused. He said, reciting what his old sensei had told him so many years ago. He unfolded his arms and reached into his pouch located on his left hip. As he was talked, he rummaged around it and pulled something out. Now, cross your fingers together like how I did. It's how you form a jutsu. Sana did as she was told and crossed her fingers together. Now, focus all of the energy of your chakra towards the soles of your feet and use that power to climb the tree. Pick any tree you want. The object Naruto had pulled out, he thrown it to the ground where Sana was standing. She peered down at it to see a kunai. I want you to mark each time you run up the tree. The object of this is to mark higher and higher with each try. Sana nodded and reached down to pick the kunai up. She looked at Naruto, who nodded, before taking a running start at a tree. 10 minutes hadn't even gone by when Sana made it to one of the top branches of the tree. She threw the kunai to the earth floor where Naruto was leaning on a tree. The blonde smiled. Great job, Sana. Come on down. The brunette nodded, but instead of jumping down branch to branch, like how most people did it, she disappeared. Naruto blinked, confused, but then going on defensive. A kunai was immediately in hand and he took up a fighting stance, scanning his surroundings. Where'd she go? You never know when someone is out to get you. And as if answering his thoughts, he felt a presence beside him. Turning that way was the 11-year-old girl. See? This is what I've been talking about. Kyuubi suddenly growled. Naruto blinked and lowered his weapon. How? He pointed to where the empty tree was to where Sana was just standing. How'd you get here so fast? Where did you go? What do you mean? Sana asked. I mean, usually it takes about, well, a lot longer to get back to the floor than what you did. How'd you do it? He tried to explain. The ninja in training just shrugged. I don't know. I've always been able to do that. I'm in one place, then I think about a different one, and poof, I'm there. Sometimes, I can poof to a really far place, like miles away. Oh, that makes sense. Naruto said, putting the pieces together. Well, at least we found one of your special jutsus. Sana looked at him with curious eyes. We do? What is it? The blonde smiled. Not many ninjas can doing it, especially go as far as you said. And it is teleportation. Without even noticing, 3 weeks had gone by. Naruto decided to stay in the little village to train Sana before going home. And, well, it was a good thing he stayed. The surroundings Sana was in helped her a lot. Instead of always traveling like she did with her father, she seemed more relaxed, learned more, and started to trust Naruto. Before, even though she thought Naruto was her master, she had no trust for him. But now, there was. Even though it has only been 3 weeks, Sana learned everything as if it had been 2 years. Things that took most ninjas months to learn, took Sana hours. This had surprised Naruto very much. The two got stuff done in very little time. At some points in time, the blonde always wondered how she was able to do it, but nothing ever came to mind. Kyuubi told him that there was something off about her, something that she had never sensed in anyone before. And when an all-powerful demon like that says something like that, it's bad news. But Naruto said they would worry about it later. Sana, wake up, a voice whispered, driving the girl out of her dreams. She blinked, her eyes opened and yawned. She looked up into the friendly blue eyes of her sensei. We're leaving, Naruto started. He was crouched down next to her, already dressed for the day, his normal orange clothes and overcoat. At those words, all sleep vanished from Sana's mind. Already? Where are we going? The excitement in her voice made the blonde smile, reminding him a bit of himself years ago. I'm going home and you're coming with me, he said, standing straight. It's been a few months since I visited my home. Sana wiggled out from under her blankets and started to tie her long brown hair up. She slipped into her knee-high boots and fishnet gloves. While she got ready, Naruto folded her blankets up and placed them in the bag he had bought for her. He didn't have a bag, instead he had a pouch that he kept on his hip where he stored his important things, and everything else, like his own blanket, was already gone. How far is your home? It's about a normal day run from here. But between your speed and mine, we could make it in about half a day. Well, that is if you're up to it, he added when Sana got to her feet. The girl nodded. Alright, I'm up for a good run. Naruto nodded, and within 10 minutes, the two were running out of town while the first rays of the sun started to shine. As the two ran, their pace matching one another, Naruto looked over to find his apprentice with an emotionless expression. He looked back ahead of him and spoke with a normal voice. You know, if there's anything you want to talk about, anything at all, you can say it. Sana turned her bright green eyes to Naruto before quickly looking away. She nodded but didn't say anything. Naruto let out a silent sigh but let the silence wash over them. While they ran, a sleepy voice poked around his thoughts. He rolled his eyes before addressing the fox. Morning, Kyuubi. Sorry to have wakened you. He received an annoyed growl. Hey, we had to wake up early to arrive at the sand in a few hours. Naruto thought back. Yes, but couldn't you have done so smoother? Kyuubi asked, annoyed. In Naruto's mind, she uncurled herself before stretching. Whatever, was all Naruto thought back. He jumped over a fallen tree and continued to keep running. Oh, hey Kyuubi, what do you think Gaara would say when he sees Sana? How the hell am I supposed to know? He shrugged. Just wonderin'. Kyuubi let a low, irritated growl escape her throat. Wonder to yourself next time, kid. The blonde let out a low chuckle. Man, was she not a morning fox? Sana looked over at her sensei when he laughed. What's funny? She asked. Naruto looked over. Oh, I was laughing aloud? Sorry, but I was just thinking. Oh, okay, she mumbled. They ran in silence for a while longer before she asked, were you talking to Kyuubi? The blonde almost tripped over his own feet but he quickly caught his balance. How do you know about her? He asked, shocked. Sana shrugged. I've heard you mumble to her in your sleep. And also, she said, but her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. My father talked about her a lot. Naruto narrowed his eyes, as did Kyuubi. What all did he say? Well, what everybody had said. She was a vile, horrible creature and was trapped inside an infant 20-something years ago. Then, when the baby grew up, the people in the village called him demon and didn't trust him because of the 9 tails. She whispered. She took a peek over at Naruto only to find his face washed of all emotion. Quickly, she adds, but I don't agree with what everyone says. The fox could be bad, but she could also be good too. When the blonde didn't say anything, she continued, and as for the kid, How can he be a demon when he helped a girl get rid of her abusive father and been nice to her ever since? It doesn't make any sense. Now Naruto looked at her. He stopped running and just stood there. Sana also stopped but was a few feet in front of him. She turned to face him. So, you know what I am and you still haven't run away screaming? He asked. Sana furrowed her slender eyebrows slightly. Why would I run away screaming? All you've ever shown me is kindness. It doesn't matter what you have inside you. All that does is how you act. The blonde smiled sadly. Only if they could see it that way. He mumbled, I'm sorry? Who could see it that way? Naruto blinked his eyes a few times. Huh? Sana repeated what she said. Oh, it's my old village. Her eyes widened. Old village? But, how is that possible? I mean, you're going home, which is your village. How is it old? It's a long story, Naruto said, half-heatedly. Sana nodded. Long stories usually help pass the time easier. If you want, we could walk and talk. Naruto mimicked her nodding and they both started to walk, evenly matching their paces. She really trusts you, Kit. Kyuubi mumbled, and she's getting more louder and confident when speaking. The blonde nodded in agreement. I live in the Sand Village, that's my new home. He began. My real home, the village where I grew up, made friends and lived, was the village hidden in the leaves. I lived there ever since I was 20. And now, I'm 22. Well, when I was a kid, all of the villagers, and I do mean all, hated me because the 9 tails lived inside me. They called me all sorts of names and always abused me. Well, like throwing things at me when I walked by. I was a lot younger than you, Sana. But, a lot of that changed. He closed his eyes as he relived the painful memories. I'll go into details later about most things, but for now, I'll start when the day things started happening. He opened his eyes. He talked about when he was a genin and his team. He didn't go into details, like he said, except for describing his squad, and he only talked about major things. He must have talked for at least an hour. When he paused for some oxygen, Sana asked, so Sasuke left to get more powerful to kill his brother. That's charming. Naruto smiled. Yeah, but that's an even longer story. But anyways, when Sasuke did leave, I left for 3 years to train with the pervy sage, Jiraiya. Sakura learned to be a medic ninja from training with Tsunade. He talked a bit about how his life went on from there. So, you said you got Sasuke back, how? Sana asked, paying attention. The blonde's expression darkened a bit. Well, it's rather complicated. Sana took the hint. I'll ask you about it a different day. She said. Naruto shot her a thank you look before looking ahead of him. They walked in silence for a while until Sana broke it. So, why did you leave? The blonde snorted, surprising the girl. I didn't get a choice on leaving. The elders of the village banished me. They said that they were tired of having the demon child in their village. Them and a few others. Was there nothing you could have done? They made their minds up. At the meeting, they gave me a choice. I could leave myself or they could chase me out. I chose to leave myself. Since I did that, some of my friends think I just left. When you left, she wanted him to keep going. Did you go straight to the village we are going to now? Naruto nodded. Yup, I have friends there. Gaara, Tamari, and Kankuro of the Sand. Gaara has a demon in him too. He is the 1 tail while I'm the 9. They accepted me and I've made the sand my home. But, I travel a lot, so I'm hardly there. Will your friends not mind me coming? Nah, I'll tell them the situation you were in. Either way, they won't mind. As they continued to walk, another silence grew between them, though this one was longer. While they walked, the trees started to thin out and a few piles of sand started to make itself known. Sana looked over at her sensei to find him deep in thought a while later. He had his hands buried in his pockets as he looked ahead of himself. His face was washed of all emotions except for this thinking face. Whatever it may be. Naruto? He didn't look at her. Can we start running? She asked, feeling bored from just walking. When they run, they go faster and it's easier to think about things. When you're walking, you just go so slow. Sure, he said absently. The two started running and before they knew it, 2 hours had passed. They came to a halt on the border of the forest and started into an open sea of sand. We don't have very long till we reach the village. Naruto said, rather cheery all of a sudden. Sana nodded. How long would that be? Well, about half an hour. We're rather close to our destination. Once again, the two were off running. What's Gaara like? The girl asked out of curiosity. Naruto thought for a moment, thinking of the best explanation to describe the redhead. He's hard to explain. At first glance, he seems imitating and scary, and he acts like that for a while, but after a while and you get to know him, he's not as scary. He smiled. He doesn't talk a lot like me, but talks. If that makes sense. If you're wondering, I'm part of their family, Konkuros, Temari's and Gaara's. They adopted me, like you adopted me? Sana asked quietly. With the trees no longer shielding the two, the afternoon sun blazed down on them. Naruto's blue eyes glimmered and he nodded his head. Just like I adopted you. Naruto and Sana made it into the village without meeting any scouts. Probably because they knew it was Naruto and that he was no threat. The blonde led Sana up the side stairs of a huge building. Once they reached the top, Naruto had Sana stop as he bit his left thumb, surprising Sana, and smeared the fresh blood on the sand building. In a flash, the dried sand crumbled away like the sand falling from an hourglass to reveal a hallway. The blonde grinned and motioned for the girl to go it. It's a code only me and Gaara know. He explained as Sana walked in cautiously. Using your own blood, either mine or his, the other is alerted on where the other is. So, if I'm out on some mission or whatever and Gaara uses the code, I know he's okay. They walked down the small hallway. It was bare except for torches lining the walls, every few yards or so. The walls were made from sand, but it was dried and hard. Is that all it does? Nope. Besides it only telling us that the other is okay, it sends an image to both of us on how the other. So it sends you an image? Like you will see what he's doing and vice versa? She guessed. Yup. As of now, Gaara is in a meeting, so we're just going to our lounging room. Sana nodded. Naruto. A female's voice sounded somewhere ahead. So you finally come home after what, 3 months? 3.5, sis. A different voice commented. This voice was a bit deep though friendly. Obviously his was male. Naruto smiled from his adopted sibling's comments. I was busy, he yelled back as he and Sana finally came into view with a large, circular room. The room looked pretty relaxing. There were a few couches facing one another, rugs covering the sandy floor, a coffee table in the middle of the couches. In the far corner of the room was a mini kitchen with a big fridge. A table was also in the kitchen. Pictures of people hung on the walls, pictures of the siblings. One of them even had Gaara doing a funny pose. One of the end tables that was against a wall held some plants and a lamp, while the other table had a rather large candle burning and with 4 pictures on it. Lounging on one of the couches with her feet tucked underneath her was a blonde woman, her hair separated into 4 ponytails. 2 on top, 2 on bottom. She was wearing a black kimono that was short-sleeved and had a giant closed fan on the ground in front of her. She had a cup of what looked to be tea in her hands. In the kitchen was a man with black pants and shirt. On his face was purple paint. He had brown hair on top of his head. His hood was down. He walked over to Naruto. How was your traveling? The man asked and grasped the blonde's forearm in greetings. We thought you were never coming back. Naruto laughed. It was all right, been training mostly. The two let each other go as they walked towards the couches. Sana stayed right behind Naruto like a puppy. Ah, learn anything new? Naruto grinned mischievously. Wheel of course, Kankuro. You don't think I'd train myself for 2 months straight without learning anything new, would you? The man, Kankuro chuckled. Before he could say anything, the lady on the couch looked behind the blonde and asked, Naruto, who's behind you? The blonde looked behind himself to find Sana being shy and hiding herself. He laughed and gave her a gently push with his hand to bring her forward. This is Sana. I saved her from a group of bandits and am training her to become a ninja. Sana. This is Kankuro and Temari. Sana just acknowledged them with a nod of her head. Well, hello there, Sana. As Naruto said, I'm Kankuro. Kankuro said and walked over to her and knelt down. He held his hand out and had on a friendly smile. Sana took his hand in hers. His hand was warm and firm and strong. They parted. Temari got up from the couch and put her mug down on the table before walking over to her. Like her brother, she knelt down and held out her own hand. I'm Temari. It's a pleasure to meet you. She smiled warmly. Sana took her hand before saying, the pleasure's all mine. Temari's hand was soft and gently but at the same time firm. When they parted, the older one stood up. Well, Sana, how long have you known Naruto? Temari asked. She walked back to the couch. But before she did, she sent an odd look to the blonde, thinking that Sana wasn't looking. Sana looked up at Naruto. He smiled down at her before following Temari's lead and walked over to the couches. About a month. She answered, also following the others. Everyone sat down. Temari back in her spot with Kankuro sitting next to her and Naruto relaxing on the couch opposite from them. He leaned his head back against the couchboard. Sana stood next to the couch, feeling awkward. Temari smiled. You can sit down, Sana. It won't bite. She nodded and sat down on the very edge of the chair that Naruto was sitting on. She placed her hands in her lap and looked down at them. So, what's been going on? Naruto asked. He closed his eyes, feeling comforted by his surroundings. If they let him, he would have fallen asleep right then and there. The usual, Kankuro replied. Missions, scouting, meetings. Even though the blonde's eyes were closed, he could image him grimacing. But, everything's been dull and boring with you gone. You always take all of the fun with you when you leave. And Gaara was getting worried about you. He was tempted to go and look for you. Temari added. Naruto's eyes flashed open and had a wide but hurt grin on his face. I'm hurt. Does he not think I can take care of myself? Of course not, a different voice said. Sana looked around, as did everyone else, to find a man about Naruto's height, has red hair, light blue eyes with a black surrounding it. On his forehead had the symbol of love on it. He was wearing dark maroon color clothes and with black pants. He walked into the room with his arms crossed at his chest. Hey, Gaara, Naruto stood up and greeted the redhead halfway. Like Kankuro's greeting, Naruto and Gaara grasped forearms. In a calm, low voice, Gaara responded, Naruto, I assume your training went well? The blonde chuckled as the two stepbrothers, that's what I'll be mentioning them as, stepbrothers, walked over to the couches. Naruto sat in his spot and Gaara stood standing. He looked over to Sana, who looked away feeling uncomfortable. You are Sana, I assume? He asked. She looked up and met his eyes and nodded. I am Gaara. Welcome to the sand. Sana nodded her thanks. Gaara looked at Naruto before saying, I need yo talk with you, Naruto. The blonde let out a playful groan and stood up. He stretched real fast before Gaara turned away and with Naruto following close behind, started to walk back the way he entered the room. Kankuro stood up as well and quickly pursued after them, leaving Temari and Sana alone in the room. Once the three boys left, Temari watched Sana with a thoughtful expression. So, Sana, how old are you? Sana looked up from her hands and answered, 11. The other chick nodded. So, you're an 11-year-old girl. Do you like to shop? Shop? Don't tell me you don't know what shopping is. She raised an eyebrow, a bit shocked. When Sana just looked at her, she explained, you know, buying stuff. Clothes and shows and jewelry and new weapons. Then she thought, I guess she's never been shopping before. The 11-year-old nodded her head in understanding. Oh, shopping. Well, to tell you the truth, I've only been shopping once. With the shock clearly on her face, Temari blinked. Really? Sana nodded her head. Then, Temari smiled with an evil grin on her face. Well then, that's going to change. Gaara led Naruto and Kankuro out into the hallway and closed the door so that the two in the room couldn't hear them. He turned to the blonde. Explain. He crossed his arms like he always does whenever he expected an explanation or story or a report. One of his signature stances, some would say. Naruto sighed and rolled his eyes. I was coming home a few weeks ago when I ran into a campsite. The site was trashed out with all of these men lounging around. From the sight of them, I could tell they were bandits. And from looking at their stuff and some of the guys cleaning the blood off their swords and other weapons, they just got down terrorizing a village. So, I killed the lot so they wouldn't be messing with anyone else. What about the girl? Kankuro asked, standing in the same stance as his biological brother. He tilted his head towards the closed door, indicating Sana. Naruto's expression changed and turned serious with an edge to it. Sana's father treated her like a slave. She had chains around her wrists and neck and was wearing dirty, torn clothes. If you saw her there, looking like she was, you would have done the same thing. She didn't belong there, not to mention that her father was the leader of the bunch, making it worst of all. So, after I killed the men, I took her and went to find a village. He continued. I left her with a nice family in a village and left her there. When I left, she was asleep. About an hour or two later, I was on my way here when I felt someone following me. The person following me was Sana. Kankuro raised an eyebrow. I questioned her about why she followed me, and let's just say she didn't want to live there and wanted to stay with me. His expression became thoughtful but still had an edge to it, like he didn't want to say what had really happened. I've been training her for the last 3 weeks. What else? Gaara prompted. There is none. I haven't gotten her backstory of what had happened to her yet. I gave her mine, though, hoping that it'll help her trust me more to share some things. Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose and closed his eyes with a sigh. I can say though, that part of her trusts me, and the other part doesn't. When he reopened his eyes, they were troubled. Gaara's expression was unreadable, like always. So you took her in. He sounded like he was just making sure that's what his step-brother meant. So you're allowing her to live with you? Naruto nodded his head. Until she doesn't want to be around me. I'm not forcing her to do anything she doesn't want to. And, if she doesn't want to live with me, then I won't stop her in leaving. I just wanted to make sure she was away and lived a free life. If she wants to stay with me, she is welcomed. After a moment of silence, Naruto asked, is that all you wanted to talk about? Gaara nodded his head, just making sure. With their talk now done, the 3 shinobi walked back into the room where the 2 girls were still seated on the couches. Temari and Sana were still in the same places when the boys got back. Though, they had started talking. When the boys came into view, they stopped and watched them come over and took their original places. Welcome back. Temari greeted with a smile, saying you better tell me what's happening later. Naruto got comfortable on the couch next to Sana and leaned back. She greeted him with a shy smile and a nod of her head. Gaara now stood behind Naruto's couch instead of sitting down. For some reason, he always found standing more comfortable. So, what were you two talking about? Naruto asked, starting up a conversation. Sana looked over to Temari, who grinned. Oh, nothing that concerns you. The blonde furrowed Hiei eyebrows and frowned. Come on, you know I hate when you do this. He whined, giving the impression that he was 10 instead of his 21 years. If I tell you, Temari grinned, having that evil smile in place, and gave a wink over to Sana. Then you'll have to come shopping with us and pay for whatever we want. Naruto gulped, losing his frown. So, Gaara, how was the meeting? He asked, changing the subject as fast as he could. He leaned his head back to look at the cage upside down. As they talked, Sana started to loosen up and relax. She found herself leaning into the comfortable couch. The bickering and playful arguments reminded her of her mother and few siblings she had. Even though they were all young, they still playfully argued. She felt her eyelids slowly close on her, having no more energy to keep them opened. Her breathing slowed down until each breath was even and smooth. While the 4 siblings continued their playful bickering, Naruto and Kankuro, Sana was dozing off, comfortable where she was. But while she started to fall asleep, she began to get into the position she always sleeps in. She slowly curled into a ball and snuggled up against what she thought was a pillow. Huh? Naruto stopped talking when he felt someone gently grab his arm and felt that someone lean on him. He looked down and smiled. Sana was asleep and subconsciously snuggling against him. Well, should we be concerned, Naruto? Temari teased, though she thought it was cute how Sana just grabbed a hold of him in her sleep. Like a little kid, Naruto turned to the chick and stuck his tongue out at her. When Temari stuck her tongue out at him, he rolled his eyes and looked back down to Sana. I guess I tired her out by all of the running today. He said, and gently brushed a strand of her hair from her eyes and tucked it behind her ear. That, or maybe she's just found peace and is relaxing. Kyuubi commented in his head. She watched the child with a warm expression. For the first time since they met her, this was the first she ever looked so in peace. Well, I'm going to go put her in my room where she can sleep without being woken up by Kankuro's yelling. Naruto smirked to Kankuro, who glared at him. He lightly pulled his arm out of her grasp and scooped her into his arms as gently as possible, trying not to wake her up. In his arms, Sana immediately snuggled against his chest. I'll be back, he said, and walked out of the room and down the hallway he, Gaara, and Kankuro were occupying half an hour ago. During the walk to his room from the living room, it was quiet. Not even the light from the holders made any sound. Best time to let your mind wander, and that is exactly what Naruto did. What you said earlier, Kyuubi, could it be true? That she found peace, I mean. Naruto thought, wondering if that could be true. Well, she seems relaxed. And by the way her expression is, she's in peace. I don't think you fall asleep looking like that and is mad about something, do you? And when she fell asleep against you, she's never done that before. Right now, her aura is calm. The fox answered. Aura? You can feel that? Naruto asked, a bit surprised. You may always say you know everything about a person, but you always find out that is a lie. Kyuubi rolled her eyes. Oh Kit, you are something. For the millionth time, I have already answered that question. Make sure it sticks to that small brain of yours. Yes, I can feel people's auras. Though, you have to be at close radius if I am able to read it. Naruto sent back a wide grin in response to her answer. I always ask myself why I was even locked inside you. Why couldn't my vessel be someone smarter? She mused. Naruto turned down a hallway. If you had someone else, you'd miss me too much. Don't deny the truth, he added when the fox rolled her eyes. He stopped right outside one of the many doors on the hallway. Though, unlike all of the other doors, in the middle of the wood was the spiral symbol of the Leaf Village. He may have been banished, but he still held on to his old life, but like he still held on to his old headband even if he doesn't wear it anymore. As gently as he could, he adjusted Sana so he could open the door. Even though evening has not yet approached, the room was pitch black. The only light seen was from the hallway, illuminating a few objects in the room. The blonde took a step into his room and flipped the light switch on to reveal a bed, dresser, a desk with a lamp, and another door that went to the bathroom. Naruto walked further into the room and went to the bed. He slowly placed the sleeping girl on his bed and grabbed a blanket at the end to place over her. He turned around to leave, but something grabbed his wrist. He turned around to see sleepy green eyes watching him. Sana, sorry to disturb you, but I thought you wanted to sleep on something more comfortable. Naruto explained. The little girl released him and sat up, rubbing the sleep out of her dazzling green eyes. She muttered, you know, she said in a soft voice, you told me about you and your life. I was thinking that if you are to trust me, I should tell you mine. You already allowed me to live with you and invited me to your home. I think it's only fair. Naruto frowned, touched that she wanted to share, but he didn't find it necessary right now. You don't have to. Sana cut him off with a small shake of her head. I want you to trust me, but in order to do that, you need to know a bit more about me. Naruto nodded and sat down on the edge of his bed, waiting for her to start. Sana brought her knees up to her chest and wrapped her slender arms around them. She started off in a small, quiet voice. I know you're curious about my father and why he did what he did. But just so you know, he wasn't always like that. When I was around 5 years old, I lived with my father, my mother, and my 2 younger brothers. We were a happy family. Me and my brothers were more closer to my mother because she was always home while my father went to work. That's how it always is with every family. Well, we loved our mother very, very much. She protected us from everything, from bugs to snakes, from bullies at the academy to when my father got mad. Sana's eyes glazed over as she spoke. Even though we were a happy family, my father always got into a drunk rage whenever he was either mad or something happened at work. Naruto stayed quiet, but mentally growled in his throat. Sometimes at night, my father would come home late because he was out drinking his problems away. When he got home, he always yelled very loudly and sometimes, he even hit my mom. It usually depended on how mad and drunk he was if he came into the room I shared with my 2 other brothers. I was usually huddled with my brothers on my bed, hugging them tight, wishing for my father to stop yelling. But, that never happened. If he came into our room, he would pry me from my brothers and he always hit me and yell at me. I was too little to understand what he was yelling about. She paused for a moment, lost in her memories. Gently, Naruto placed a hand on hers. She didn't look up, though he whispered in an encouraging voice, go on. Well, it stayed like that for a little over a year. We couldn't tell anyone because he threatened to kill my younger brother. Tears welled up into her eyes. And that's exactly what happened. Just one time, I was talking to one of the officers because they were asking about a bruise I had on my cheek. I told them that I fell. They believed me and didn't question me anymore and they left. That only lasted for like a minute. Well, when I got home, my mother was sitting with her back to the door in a growing puddle of blood. I got scared. Now, the tears fell freely down her cheeks and she did nothing to wipe them away. My father somehow saw me talking to the officer. He thought I had told him that he was abusing us. He killed my little brother. After that, she sniffled as she continued. My mother tried to run away with me and my other brother. We thought we got a good ways, but my father had followed us. He caught up with us when we stopped to take a break and right in front of me, he slaughtered my defenseless brother and my mom. This time, she buried her head in her knees. In a muffled voice, though Naruto could still understand her, she continued, "My father didn't want to be found out that he killed his family, minus me. So he ran away from our home, forcing me to go along with him. We were living on the road, stealing from people and killing others. I kept trying to run away from him, to escape, but he would always find me, hurt me, and then forced me to stay with him. Along the way, my father started gathering followers. With the other guys, my father treated me more like a slave and always had me run and cook them something to eat or give them entertainment." She shuddered. "It's been like that until you found me. For 5 years, I lived like that." As she finished her story, Kyuubi, who had been listening, whispered, "She's had a rough childhood." Naruto nodded and scooted over to sit beside her. He gently pulled her into her arms and asked her, "What were your brothers' names?" "Cal and Kato. They were twins." Sana sobbed. She lifted her face from her knees and buried it into Naruto's chest as she continued to cry. The blonde nodded and took her ponytail out of her hair. Slowly, he ran his hand through her hair to help calm her down. "You know, I can't relate to your life, but I can help ease some of your pain," Naruto whispered. He rested his cheek on top of her head. "When I was still growing up, I didn't have a family or any friends. No one liked me because I had Kyuubi in me. I was abused and was called demon child, so it was very hard to make friends. By that time, I didn't know about Kyuubi. That kind of information was kept top secret from the new generation, even from me. Only the adults knew about it because they witnessed it. My mother and father both died when the Nine-Tails Fox attacked the Leaf Village, so I didn't have any siblings. It wasn't until I was a part of Squad 7 that I actually gained friends. 12 years later and I made friends with Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha and my sensei Kakashi Hitaki. Then, I started to gain more friends, but what I'm trying to really get at is I know what it's like losing a brother. It's not exactly the same of how you lost your family, but in a way, it is." Sana tilted her head up a bit to peek at him with one of her red, puffy eyes. Naruto lifted his head off of hers. He continued, thankful that he was calming her down even if it was just a bit. "Me and Sasuke, we really hated each other. He was the cool, good-looking guy with everyone liking him while I was the class clown. Then, how'd you become friends?" Sana asked in a soft, broken voice. Tears remained flowing out of her eyes and down her cheek. Naruto sadly smiled as he relived his own memories. "We never officially became friends. Well, kind of. We became friends, but we annoyed each other so much, people wouldn't even give us a second thought that we were friends. That's just how we were. Secretly, without us even realizing it, we became best friends. We really didn't take notice until one day we were fighting each other to try to kill one another. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but I will have to tell you that story a different time. It's just, I know how you feel when you say you lost your family because someone killed them. I lost my best friend, my brother, and it was devastating. I never met my parents, so I wouldn't know about that. By the sound of it, your friend, he didn't die." To affirm her guess, Naruto nodded. "So, there's always a way to get him back. There's no way to bring Cal and Kato back. They're dead." More tears slide down her face like a never-ending river. Naruto thought for a minute. Even though he was just trying to find a way to get her to stop crying, which had sort of worked, he thought of something that made him nervous to ask. Would she say yes? "Sana, how about, if you want a brother, you've got one." She shook her head and hid her face again against his chest. "I can't. My mother is already dead. She cannot have any more kids." Naruto chuckled. "That's not what I mean. You need someone to love you and protect you. You know, I've never had a little sister before." The arms around him tightened. "How would you like to become my Imoto-chan?" he asked, using the Japanese term of little sister. Sana stiffened at the question. Then, without further ado, she nodded her head and cried, "Yes. As long as you will be my ni-sama," she said using the Japanese term of big brother. Naruto nodded and hugged her tightly against him. "But, I need to know just one thing, Sana. I know this sounds crazy and funny at the same time, but what's your last name?" "I don't know. It's been so long since I've used it. I guess, I don't really have one," she whispered. Naruto nodded again. "Would you like one?" Sana nodded her head. "Well, then, welcome to the family, Sana Uzumaki." 2 years have passed since that day where Sana got her own last name and a new brother. Her life changed for the better. She now had not only a brother, but 3 other family members. The day Naruto announced her as his sister, the Sand siblings welcomed her to their family with opened arms. She now had a home, a brother and a family who loves her as she loves them. In those 2 years that passed, Sana's training went skyrocketing. If she had stayed and lived in the village and took part in being a ninja for them, she would be considered a Junin for her fast learning, skills and strength. To be exact about how much she improved, if you put her in a sparring match between Tamari or Kankuro, she would kick their butts hands down. If they were together and against Sana, that would be a little close, but Sana would still be able to win. If you put her in a match against Gaara or Naruto, she would have a lot of trouble. She was still training on that, but hadn't been able to beat them. Yet, during her training, Naruto found out something interesting. Something he had never heard of. Kyuubi, being a powerful demon and has lived many lives, once had heard of one human having such elements. It was so powerful, but so rare, it was almost 300 years in between the last human who had the power, as some ninja likes to call it. Kyuubi was shocked to have seen it, that's why at first, the 9 Tails didn't like the girl. Now, Sana's element is not only one, like how most people start out as, she has 2. Hers are solar and moon elements. During the day, she can only use the solar chakra and during the night, she can only use the moon. Naruto found this a bit challenging, but he also found it interesting. Gaara found this interesting as well and would sometimes have a sparring match with her. He liked to test out this chakra and see all what she could do. Besides Naruto, Kyuubi, and the Sand siblings, no one else knew about the rare elements. Well, unless you want to count the many dead ninja bandits she and Naruto had killed because they were terrorizing villages and doing wrong to others, then yeah. About a month or 2 after Naruto had made Sana his sister, the girl started to ask a lot of questions. She started to get curious and wanted to know a lot about the blonde. Not only ask about the blonde, but about Kyuubi. In which, Naruto would have to summon a chibi fox out so she could answer the questions. Naruto didn't really want to relay the answers back, knowing that Fox would make him say something embarrassing. Sana would ask all kinds of questions from the simple things, like did she have any kits, to battle strategy and what would happen to the fox if she and Naruto separated for real. That question was a bit hard to answer. Both of us would die, Naruto had answered her in an emotionless voice. When Sana had looked up to her brother, she noticed how stone-hard his face was, revealing no emotions. She knew it was not a subject to get on, so she had quickly changed it. Since the fox and girl had been talking a lot, they began to have formed a bond of their own. Sana would look to the fox for help and advice if she wasn't in the sand to ask Tamari or if it was a question Naruto had no idea how to answer. And that wasn't all the bond had done or what it was about. Since Sana had become close to the fox, besides Naruto, that was the only other human to have ever done that. Kyuubi was able to do something no one thought was possible. Naruto didn't even think the fox could do it, and that's saying something. The 9-tailed fox stored some of her chakra inside Sana so when time goes bad, like during a battle, and Sana got hurt, Kyuubi's chakra would start to heal her wounds. Kyuubi took a liking to the little girl. Besides their bond, their liking grew to a loving bond. For the last 2 years, besides being a part of a family, Sana and Naruto had been traveling from place to place. They were always restless when they were in the sand so they went out for a few months then came back for about a few weeks, then right back out. When they were out, they trained a lot. But that wasn't the only thing. They would go to villages and see if they needed help with anything. To earn money, really. Some people had small jobs like, "Can you do this for me?" and stuff like that. The ones that the 2 siblings were famous for, throughout the countries, was getting rid of bandits and bad people. They always caught them and would either kill them, if they were really bad, or put them in jail. That was how they earned the big bucks. But Naruto didn't like them paying that much. Whatever they offered, he halved it. It was a good price, even if the people said that was a rip-off for him. The blonde just wanted to be fair. That's also why he was famous. While out, Naruto also, as I said before, went around and met new friends and reunited with old. He never saw any of the Leaf Shinobi, but he didn't care. Sana got to meet the people and got to learn more about her brother from the stories they would tell her. Stuff from how the blonde was like back when he was her age. The place they visited a lot was the land of the waves. Sana liked the family there: Tazuna the grandfather, Inari the son, and Tsunami the mama. They all took a liking to the girl, one of the reasons why they visited a lot. As of now, the 13-year-old girl and a man of 24 were walking down a dirt road, enjoying the sun's rays that hit the back of their necks. The trees along the sides of the road were too far apart to cast any shade. No one else were on the worn road except for them, even though it was around noon-ish. Sana looked up at her sensei, brother, and asked in a normal, carefree voice, "Naruto, where are we going today?" She still wore the same style of clothing and didn't look much different except for looking a bit older and grew an inch or two. Her hands were hanging at her sides and she was walking with a small bounce of impatience. A typical teenager. The blonde looked down at his student before crossing his arms behind his head. That is a good question. I was thinking about going." He was interrupted when something warm and wet fell on his cheek. He freed one of his hands and lifted it to his cheek. His hand touched the water and then he brought his hand in front of him to just see that it was water. At the same time, both of the siblings looked up towards the blue sky just as more raindrops came pouring down. They splashed down all around them and on them. The sky slowly started to turn a dark blue, showing that a storm was going to be on its way really soon. "I didn't know it was going to rain," Naruto thought aloud. The sky didn't even have one rain cloud in it. The rain started coming down harder and some nearby birds that were looking for food on the ground squawked and flew off. Some squirrels and other small animals ran for cover in some bushes or trees. Soon enough, everything and everyone was soaked, and the rain was only on for a few minutes. Sana, despite being soaked, continued to look up at the sky. The sun was now hiding itself behind the dark, scary clouds that looked frightening. "Come on, let's go find some shelter and hide out from this storm. I can't tell how bad it's going to get," Naruto muttered, tapping the girl on the shoulder. Sana tore her eyes from the sky and nodded. They soon took to shelter in a small cave not far from the road. The cave went a few yards back and was big enough to hold only a few people. It was empty with a small pile of bones that looked too small to be human. They looked to be some kind of animal bones that was from someone's lunch or dinner a long time ago. In the cave, they made a small fire to help warm and dry themselves. Now, Naruto was leaning near the cave's entrance, looking around the forest with his mind lost in thought, while Sana sat near the fire, sharpening her favorite knife. The knife was 1.5 feet long with a silver blade with specks of sand melted in with it. It was stronger than any metal since it was forged out of kunai metal and sand that Gaara helped make with his chakra-filled sand. It was just as strong as a normal kunai, and it would take a long to break the weapon. Anyways, she was sharpening her one-of-a-kind weapon, in long even strokes. The crackling of the fire and the sharpening were the only sounds in the cave, along with the sounds of the rain. After a good while of silence, Sana finally broke it. "Naruto, why does it rain?" The blonde blinked his eyes and looked over to his adopted sister. He thought about the answer for a moment and smiled as he said, "Well, a long time ago, back when I was about your age, maybe younger, a lot younger, I asked one of my teachers the same question." His words lead him to his favorite sensei, Iruka, who was like an older brother to him. He told me it was because there are holes in the floor of heaven. One day shy of 8 years old, Grandma passed away. I was broken-hearted little boy. Blowing out that birthday cake. Holes in heaven? She stopped sharpening her knife and looked curiously up to her brother. She lowered her weapon and watched him turn to look at her as his back leaned against the wall of the cave. "Yup, right now, Sana, you have some people up there in heaven." As if it were a question, the girl nodded her head to confirm his facts. "Well, your mom and 2 brothers are watching you. You know that because their tears are coming down from those holes. How I cried when the sky let go. With a cold and lonesome rain." Mama smiled, said, "Don't be sad, child. Grandma's watching you today." Sana's eyes seemed to widen. "Why are they crying?" "They miss you and wish they could be here with you now," he answered, softly smiling now. "'Cause there's holes in the floor of heaven. And her tears are pouring down. That's how you know she's watching. Wishin' she could be here now." That got the 11-year-old gazing out of the entrance of the cave. She seemed to be staring at something no one but her could see. The rain continued to fall and the sky was still dark. There were no lightning or thunder sounding, which was weird. It looked like it was around late afternoon, almost early evening instead of the afternoon. That's how dark the sky had turned. And sometimes if you're lonely, just remember she can see. There's holes in the floor of heaven. And she's watching over you and me. Naruto, Sana softly said, watching as the man turned to look back at her than the forest. She stood up, leaving her weapon on the sandy floor and stood there looking nervous. Is it alright if I play in the rain? She asked, fidgeting and her fingers twirled in the seams of her shirt. She looked down at her feet like she was getting into trouble. She waited for his reply. Seasons come and seasons go. Nothing stays the same. I grew up, fell in love, met a girl who took my name. I don't see why not, Naruto said. The girl looked up and nodded her head. Thank you. And she ran out of the cave and into the rain. Year by year we made a life. In this sleepy little town. I thought we'd grow old together. Lord, I sure do miss her now. Naruto soon lost sight of her from the underbrush. Then he frowned. What is it, Kit? Kyuubi's voice echoed around in his head. I'm curious, was all he said before walking out into the rain and trialing after his sister. But there's holes in the floor of heaven. And her tears are pouring down. That's how I know she's watching. Wishing she could be here now. It didn't take long to find her. And when he did, he hid his chakra's signature and hid behind a tree, not wanting to be spotted or to interrupt whatever Sana was doing. He crouched low and was glad that there was a bush next to the tree. The girl was standing in a small little, grassy clearing. The rain was falling through since the trees couldn't shelter it. Sana's face was tilted up towards the sky and she stared at it. And sometimes when I'm lonely, I remember she can see. There's holes in the floor of heaven. And she's watching over you and me. What's she doing? Kyuubi asked, watching with curiosity. Her vessel shrugged as he also watched her with interest. They continued to watch in a wet silence. Well, my little girl is 23. I walk her down the aisle. It's a shame her mom can't be here now. To see her lovely smile. After a few minutes of doing nothing, the blonde then noticed something different. Sana began to cry. It was a bit difficult to tell, with the rain still falling, but he could still tell. They throw the rice, I catch her eye. As the rain starts coming down, she takes my hand, says, Daddy, don't be sad. 'Cause I know Mom is watching now. Tears silently slid down her face and mixed in with the raindrops. Her eyes were closed for a while, but then she opened them and began to speak in a soft, hoarse voice. Mom, she said. Naruto raised an eyebrow but said nothing. I miss you too, Mom. After you passed away, he was so horrible to me. I hated him so much. But you've been with me all this time. Always by my side, trying to comfort me, even though I didn't know. She smiled as more tears spilled over her eyelids. Thank you. I would never have been scared if I knew you were there. The day before I was freed, it was raining. I think you were trying to tell me something that I now understand. I think you were trying to tell me that I was going to be freed. That I was going to get a new brother. She paused for a minute before a giggle erupted from her chest. I miss you so much. And there's holes in the floor of heaven. And her tears are pouring down. That's how you know she's watching. Wishing she could be here now. Why is she crying? Kyuubi asked, slightly confused. Never once has she ever seen this sight. And sometimes when I'm lonely, I remember she can see. Yes, there's holes in the floor of heaven. And she's watching over you and me. Because she doesn't want her mom to see her cry about being sad. Naruto explained in a soft, sad voice before he stood up and turned around. He calmly started to walk back towards the cave. He cast his eyes downward as he felt his own hot tears slide down his already wet cheeks and mix in with the rain. Watching over you and me. Watching over you and me. Watching over you and me. About an hour later and the rain finally let up. Everything was soaked outside and the sky lightened up to how it normally looked after it rained. A nice gray color. The air was heavily scented of the moist forest, giving it a nice smell of wet oak and pine mingled together. The smell of rain also hung in the air. Naruto never mentioned anything to Sana about watching her or anything else. When she had come back 20 minutes after she had left, she sat back at the fire and continued to sharpen her knife. They then had started to talk about where they were going to be headed when the rain had let up. After packing up all of her belongings and extinguishing the fire, she grabbed her bag and stood beside her brother and looked out the cave and once again into the forest. We're going to the land of flowers for a while. I helped a few people a year or 3 ago and we became good friends. Naruto answered. They exited the cave and then started on their way towards their next destination. Sana nodded, glad that it wasn't raining anymore and that she could stretchy legs after the hour of sitting down. What did you do for them? Well, I helped them rescue their kid. Sana looked at him with curious green orbs, wanting more. He lightly chuckled. Well, I was really just passing by the village, you know, I was just traveling around. Well, as I was walking by, I found this little boy stuck far up this tree and couldn't get down. His leg was caught in between the branches. After I got him down and asked what he was doing up there, I found out that his leg was sprained. He was running from a wolf and tripped over a log. Then he had climbed a tree as high as he could to get away from that beast. Well, I gave him a lift back to his home and there I was greeted by his family who were worried. They offered me a place to stay and a meal. I stayed there for about 3 days and got to know them. And I haven't seen them since, so I thought it would be nice to see them again. He finished his small story. Is that cool with you? The girl nodded. Since it's the land of flowers, does it smell nice there? Yup. Though, the smell clung to me for a few days after I left. I kept getting compliments for all these girls when I went to different villages. He rolled his eyes and laughed. Before he could say anything else, Kyubi interrupted him with a mental slap of the face. Hey kid, I thought you were going back home. Why would we go home? He asked, sending a glare back. The demon bared its teeth and lightly growled. Gee, let me think, a certain someone's birthday is coming up? The blonde's eyes widened. Shit, I forgot. He took a millisecond to look at the teenager beside him before looking ahead of him again. He frowned and then quickly wiped his face of those emotions just in case Sana decided to look at him. That's why I reminded you, the fox sighed, then asked herself why she was stuck inside this particular human. Actually, Naruto stopped walking, causing Sana to stop also and gaze at him. We need to go back home. Why? The blonde then smiled. Well, Gaara wanted us to be back for a certain celebration. Celebration? What kind? She asked, her eyes growing excited. I'm not sure. Just something really special. He didn't technically lie to her, he just wasn't telling her all the truth. Sana nodded, wondering what kind of celebration would be going on to have them both had to go home. The two then changed direction and started to head towards the sand. Luckily for them, they were only a few days' trip from their destination. So, they decided to walk most of the way, saving their energy and chakra just in case someone wanted to attack them. Which wouldn't be the first time. While they walked, Naruto would have his student practice some of her jutsus and taijutsu. Some of her jutsus were like all of the other jutsu that you would recognize, but just with different names and looks. Like take the fireball jutsu. Sana would be slightly different. The shape of it would be more as a oval with orange-yellow fire. But instead of it staying its shape, it would stay round, but with a few lava-looking liquid leaking out. Bad description, sorry. She had different names for it, but let's not get into that yet. But since the sun was not out right now, neither was the moon, she couldn't rely on her chakra to help preform her jutsu. The only things she could do, was do the simple-est things like shadow clone jutsu. Other than that, she would do the hand signs and call the names even though nothing would work. You're getting really good at your speed for your hand signs. Naruto praised her as she just got done with one of her harder jutsu signs. The teen beamed. Well, I should be. You make me practice every day. The blonde smiled. Just getting you prepared if we were ever under attack, again. You've only been training for 2 years. Most people would die with only that much experience. Sana finished in a mocking sort of way. She rolled her eyes, already have heard this speech many times over. But that isn't a problem for me. When Naruto frowned and raised an eyebrow, she continued, I have you for a teacher who is always preparing me for anything. She's been paying attention. And, she's right, you nearly exhaust her with the constant training. The fox purred. I only want you to be able to survive if a Akatsuki member or Orochimaru attacked us. He mumbled, talking to the both of them. He wouldn't say it, but he was really worried about her if they did get attacked by the certain people, so he trained her hard. He didn't know what Sana would be like against a full-grown shinobi. That, and since they were always traveling, it was to also keep her mind busy. Sana was quiet for a moment, watching a blue firefly fly by. Naruto, why did the Akatsuki want to capture you? A little distance, another dragonfly appeared, it being red. You keep talking about them coming after you, even the other dude, Orochimaru. I don't understand. Before the blonde could speak, the two fireflies met each other but they didn't do anything to each other except pass one another. I figured you were going to as that soon. He sighed before stuffing his hands into his pants pockets. He tilted his head back just a bit as he thought of a good way to explain it. Well, in a way, you could really blame Kyuubi. She's the reason why they're after me. He then smirked. My fault? Naruto winced but kept his smirk as the fox shrieked. How's it her fault? She didn't do anything. Sana was quick to depend. She furrowed her eyebrows and put her hands on her hips. Yeah, I didn't do anything. The fox growled. Naruto held his hands up in a surrender stance. Okay, fine. She didn't exactly do anything. Just being alive does it all. She relaxed her stance but kept her eyebrows furrowed. Being alive? Yup, because I have the nine-tailed fox in me. I'm one of the most powerful humans alive. If I was in the Akatsuki's grasp, then they would become invincible. They'll also separate me and Kyuubi. He explained when he got a confused look. So what about the other dude? She asked. Orochimaru? Well, you remember when I told you he took other people's bodies so he could be immortal, right? She nodded. He wanted your friend Sasuke, but before he could take it, Sasuke escaped, or left. Something like that. Something among those likes. Naruto agreed. Well, since Orochimaru lost someone powerful, he needed someone to replace him. Someone with the same power or even more powerful. You? Yup, though it's rather disturbing to think about. A chill went up his spine just thinking about his body being taken over from that snake. So, I'm always on the move, training. If I stay in one place for too long, then they'll have an easier way to track me down and capture me. And since you're traveling with me, and my sister, he ruffled her hair, I need to have you trained in case we see them. Sana nodded and tried to flatten and smooth her hair down. They continued to walk. The sun was finally coming out of the clouds and settled high in the still gray open space. There was surprisingly no humidity and in its place was a nice breeze blowing. After a while of silence, Sana grabbed her sensei's arm and clung to him like a little 5-year-old. Naruto glanced down at her to meet her forest green eyes staring up at him. What's up? Tell me more about your old village. She pleaded. He scratched the back of his head with his free hand. You really like hearing about my past, huh? He sighed when his sister nodded her head in enthusiasm. Alright, but where did I leave off last time? Sana thought for a minute before replying. You explained how you trained for 3 years after you and Sasuke had that fight at the Valley of the End. Then stuff happened and you were going to explain how you really brought Sasuke back. Naruto thought for a minute and remembered. Then he started with his story. Well, this happened a year before I left the village, so about a good 5 years ago. I somehow gathered some information about the whereabouts of Sasuke and went to Grandma Tsunade, so give me permission to go after him. Of course, she refused. So, I kept bothering her about it and wouldn't stop. You know, now that I think about it, I was very persistent back then. You still are. Both Kyuubi and Sana thought at the same time. After about the millionth time of asking her, she agreed. But, I had to gather a squad. I didn't want one and told her traveling more than one person would look like I was going to force him to come back. She didn't really like my disagreeing with her, but she agreed. Only one condition. After that day, I had to stop going after him. That took all of my strength to tell her deal. It took a few days to find him, even though I had Kyuubi helping me. Without her, I wouldn't have been able to locate him. Yeah, so don't you be saying that I'm to blame about shit. She growled, still upset about his earlier comment. Naruto rolled his eyes and continued. I found him traveling alone. Later he told me he was on some mission for Orochimaru. I snuck up on him and gave him a surprise attack. We were both surprised. Sasuke that I snuck up on him without him knowing, and me sneaking up on him without him knowing. He always knows. Well, during the surprise attack, I had the advantage. We fought for maybe 10 minutes before I knocked him out, giving him a nasty arm wound. Subconsciously, the blonde rubbed his chest. Sana noticed, but didn't say anything. When we woke up, he was surprised. He thought I was going to drag him back to the village and force him to stay. But you didn't? Sana asked, surprised. He shook his head. Nah, as much as I wanted to, I didn't. When he woke up, he found me sitting next to the fire. Flashback. Naruto was sitting next to a small fire, staring into the flames. His legs were drawn up to his chest and his arms were wrapped around them. He rested his chin on his arms. In a way, he looked sad. He didn't talk as his raven hair friend woke up. Sasuke didn't say anything either. He just sat up and looked around the tiny clearing. It was a bit small to make camp, but that would be around 3 or 4 people. For just the two of them, it was perfect. He then turned his dark eyes on his blonde friend, and being as quietly and stealthy, his right hand moved till it came in contact with the hilt of his sword. In anyone's eyes, they wouldn't have noticed nothing. "I'm not going to fight you," Naruto mumbled loud enough to be heard. He didn't look up or even move for that matter. Even with those words, the Uchiha didn't relax his grip. "What do you want?" he asked in a chilling voice that would frozen anyone stiff. He glared at the other and waited for his response. Naruto finally looked up and met the other's eyes. His blue-colored eyes looked sad, but it didn't betray his voice, which sounded normal, just soft. "I just want to talk." Sasuke snorted and rolled his eyes and looked away. His eyes scanned the surrounding area to make sure no one was going to attack them. That, and to make sure they were the only two around. "Right, you're just going to try and talk me and going back to that village. You are so naive, Naruto, it won't work. I am never going back there. I left on a mission. I already told you that." "I know, but that's not what I came here to talk about." That caught the young Uchiha off guard as a flicker of surprise crossed his face. But, as quickly as it came, it left and he was back to scowling. He looked back to the familiar blonde. "Then what do you want to talk about?" he sneered. Naruto shrugged before he looked away and stared off into the night sky. From where he was seated, he couldn't see the stars as well. "Don't really know, to be honest. I guess, I just wanted things to be normal again, even if it were only for a couple of minutes. Sorry to burst your bubble, Doby, but things will never go back to normal. Not until I kill my brother. Even after, I doubt anything that you are thinking will come true." He ruined the quiet moment, but Naruto didn't seem to mind. He ignored his last comment and questioned, "Is that the only reason why you're staying with Orochimaru? You may be getting stronger, but if you stay there any longer, then you'll never get the chance to kill your brother." "What do you know?" Sasuke spat. "You don't know anything about this. You don't know what it's like to know that your brother is out there committing a horrible crime. You don't understand why I need to be with Orochimaru to get stronger. You don't even know what it's like to have a brother." He growled at the last words, ignoring the hurt look the blonde gave him. "You don't know anything." His dark eyes turned red with anger. Naruto's usually happy and bright blue eyes faltered and shone with loneliness and the hurt. "I know. I never knew what it was like to have a family. So what would I know how that would feel? But, you want to know something, Sasuke? I do know what it's like to have a brother. And I know what it's like to lose one too, and it hurts. Back when we were fighting 3 years ago, I told you you were my best friend. You still are. I won't lose sight of that, even if you call me a fool. I still see you as my brother." Before Sasuke could yell some snide insult back, a twig snapped. Both shinobi's heads perked right up, alarmed. Their conversation they had just seconds ago seemed more like hours ago as they got to their feet. "Shit," Naruto whispered. Both men got into a fighting position. Sasuke with his sword out, and Naruto with his kunai. They both started in different directions, having no idea where the enemy or whoever it was. "It's a ambush," Kyuubi warned. Her senses were on full alert as she kicked herself for not being able to sense the people approaching first. "2 men are going to be coming down on you, so be careful. They have many weapons, and there's at least 40 surrounding." Just as he nodded his head, his kunais were above his head and deflected a few other kunai. And the battle began. He deflected a few more kunai hurled from above before pushing off the ground in one big leap. He surprised 2 men covered from head to toe in black clothing and gave them both a good punch in their stomachs. As they started to fall towards the earth, Naruto kneed the man on his right in the stomach and punched the other man in the nose, hearing a crunch on impact. "Ooh, that broke," he smirked. He watched as the 2 unconscious forms hit the ground in an awkward way and didn't move after that. The blonde then perched himself on a tree branch, getting ready for his next move. Sasuke had engaged in battle when the clearing erupted with men. At least 20 could be seen, but with the Uchiha's eyes and sense, he knew there was another 20 surrounding them, waiting. He didn't think about that for long as 3 men came on him. In one simple movement of his wrist, his sword slashed the men in the stomach and left them falling to the ground dead. A few more men came onto him, each of them having some kind of weapon in hand. The first man, having a sword, tried to swipe at his face, but Sasuke quickly dodged and killed the man by stabbing him in the heart. The other 2, each supporting some form of hammer, tried to attack him on both sides, thinking they had the upper hand. But little did they know who they were dealing with. Sasuke waiting for the last moment before leaping out of the way as both enemy men had swung where the Uchiha was just standing. Instead of attacking him, they swung at each other, crushing their ribs in the process. "Fools," Sasuke muttered, landing on the ground a foot from the dead bodies. He didn't get much chance to breathe before he was attacked again by at least 5 people. Each of them wanting to spill his blood. The men came from all over, gathering in a circle and tried to ambush him. But with his training, he backflipped over some, sliced them all over in a few seconds, and started on the others, not once breaking a sweat. Naruto had summoned 5 other clones and they each perched on the tree branch with ease. Each and every one of them had a kunai in each hand. Not a second later, they all yelled and pushed off the tree and sailed down to the ground, all taking on their own bad guy. The real Naruto was battling 2-on-1, but was having no problem. They were easy. He killed one by tossing a kunai at his throat while dodging someone throwing their weapons at him. Noticing the man was now defenseless, the blonde smirked. "You know, when you come to battle, always have more than one weapon," he advised the man when he didn't do anything to defend himself. To say, that man died. Naruto had no time to celebrate or even look around the clearing how many enemies were left. He had a lot more coming at him. Right when he paroled someone's sword from stabbing him in the throat, Naruto failed to block his left side when he was cut on the arm by a flying throwing star. "NN," he grunted, though it didn't hurt that much. The blonde had just enough time to kill the man he was blocking before reaching into his pouch on his hip and brought out 2 kunai. In which, he threw them at the person who threw the stars. Naruto didn't even have time to check if he killed him before his attention went to someone new. As quick as a ninja, haha, our favorite blonde swung around and crouched low as one enemy ran towards him on one side, and a different one on his other. Just like what happened to Sasuke, these men killed one another. "I don't understand," Kyuubi mused, confused by the scene. "These men are weak, why are they attacking? Did you do anything to them?" She then hissed, half joking the other half not. Naruto rolled his eyes. "Of course not. Never seen them before in my life." With that said, he was just leapt off the ground and was about to throw some new kunais that appeared in his hand when someone collided against him. A bit shocked, Naruto tried to regain his balance in the air but was unsuccessful when that same person grabbed a hold of his feet and used force to bring him down. He crashed to the earth on his back and had the breath knocked out of him. Before he could regain his breath and get to his feet, he felt something puncture his ankles and wrists, pinning him to the ground. "Damn it," he cursed just as something came in contact around his neck. He tried not to cry out from the pain. Kunai was what was sticking out of his wrists and ankles, causing blood to gush out around the weapons. "Naruto!" Sasuke suddenly yelled from across the clearing. He was battling 4 people at once when he saw the blonde go down. Breaking the number 1 rule for all ninjas, he let himself get distracted. And in those few seconds, the enemy took advantage. They disarmed him, his sword flying out of his hands and landed a few yards from him. Before Sasuke had time to react, the men suddenly seemed to get stronger and faster and were able to throw kunai at him and pinned him against the tree. Someone came from behind and held a sword at Sasuke's throat. "Sasuke!" Naruto yelled, trying to get out of the situation he was in. As he started to wiggle, he felt this sudden pressure around his neck, pushing downwards. Suddenly, the clearing came alive with new, alive people. They walked around the bodies and stood with weapons ready. They smirked at the 2 ninjas. "Get this piece of shit off of me or I'll kill you," Naruto threatened, his eyes narrowing. He glared at one of the nearby guys, but all they did was smirk bigger, showing the blonde his yellowed teeth. Sasuke stayed where he was, not moving. He looked around the little area and started to form a plan. Even though this was an easy situation to get out of, he was waiting for the right moment. As his eyes scanned around, he was suddenly looked down at Naruto to the thing around his neck. It was something he never had seen before. There were 2 2-foot poles on each side of the dobi's neck. Connecting the poles was this red rubber cloth that stretched across his neck. It was lying against his skin. It looked like something a little kid could make in arts and craft, not at all threatening. So why isn't he moving? Sasuke thought angrily. No one moved a muscle as someone new walked into the clearing. As he walked, the people in his way scurried to the sides, almost like they were scared. This new character was wearing tan-colored pants and a light blue shirt with no stains or anything. Unlike his clothing, his face was covered in scars, new and old. He was in many, many battles. Hanging at his side was a sword that was still closed. He walked over to Naruto and looked down at him with a smirk. "Who the hell are you?" the blonde growled. "And get this damn thing off of me." He tried to move his hands but pain was all he was getting, so he had to stop moving. From the movement of his hands, the thing around his neck started to emit pressure, causing him to start panting. Sasuke watched the scene and had to bite his tongue so he wouldn't yell out to his ex-comrade. "I don't care what happens to him," he thought angrily. He narrowed his eyes and watched the new person. From the way he was standing and how everyone had moved aside to let him through, Sasuke could tell he was the leader. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded the man. The leader turned his head over to the raven-haired man and smiled with his yellowed teeth showing. "No one of importance." "Well, on the other hand, since I'm about to kill you both, I guess I am important." Though, he didn't introduce himself. However, he looked back at the blonde and knelt down to get a better look at him. He thoughtfully said and looked at him like he was some piece of meat. "What do you want?" Naruto spat. More pressure came down on his throat, but he ignored it and started to thrash around, trying to break free. He didn't like just lying here, wounded. He was a ninja, for crying out loud. He shouldn't be doing this. He should have already gotten out of this and killed all of these men. Tears stung his eyes as he could barely breathe. "I wouldn't move, if I were you," the man advised. "The more you move, the more pressure there is. It'll only stop once the trap crushes your windpipes and kills you." He stood back up to his full height and kept his eyes on his victim. Naruto ignored the warning and growled, "Again, what do you want?" "To kill you, duh. Otherwise you wouldn't be in that trap." He rolled his eyes like it was the simplest thing ever. His men chuckled. "Why?" He shrugged. "Because I can. I don't like people, so I go around killing them. That, and it's my hobby." "You're sick," Naruto said, thinking that this was a horrible way to die. Killed by a crazy man, great. He tried to take a big gulp of air as he became lightheaded. "Thank you," he said, taking it as a compliment. He took his sword out of its scabbard and held it over the blonde's hearts. "So, any last words?" He grinned. Naruto looked up at him, glaring. "How about 5, a voice said from behind the man. Confused, the man turned around only to be punched right in the jaw, sending him flying to the ground. "No one hurts the blonde," Sasuke said in a deep, pissed-off voice. The pressure on Naruto's neck continued, even though he took the person's advice and stopped moving. The rubber as it kept pressing down on his skin started to get hot and soon it started to burn his skin. That caused him to whimper softly. As it kept getting hotter and harder to breathe, little black specks appeared in his vision. His eyes became glazed over and he couldn't see. His breathing slowed down as it was harder to breathe. Just as he closed his eyes, knowing this was his last, the pain and pressure receded and he felt the kunai plucked out of him. Feeling weak, Naruto tried to get to his feet but couldn't. He was too dizzy. But that didn't matter. A hand suddenly appeared before his eyes. "Nice of you to join us," Sasuke smirked, like how he used to way back in the day. He held his hand down. Naruto took the offer hand and the raven hoisted him up. Once on his feet, he looked around the clearing and noticed it was quiet. There was no living being except for them two standing. Everywhere were bodies and pools of blood. "What happened?" he croaked. His bloodied hand went to his throat, which felt raw and dry. Sasuke took a step back and shrugged. He flicked his sword to rid of the blood on it before putting it back in its scabbard. "Most of those men got away," he said in a bored voice. "But I got to kill some, including their leader." He didn't have to point to where the man laid in a broken, bloodied heap across the clearing. "Man, I must have been out of it or something to not have noticed," Naruto thought. He nodded his head and started to rub his aching neck. That contraption did more damage than he thought. It hurt like hell. Unnoticed, a pair of dark eyes were watching him. "How bad is your neck?" Naruto stopped. He looked over at his ex-comrade. Sasuke actually was concerned on how he was. But, if you were someone other than Naruto, you wouldn't have been able to detect the concern. It was hidden quite well in his voice. He was just about to answer him when something flickered in the moonlight at the corner of his eye. And that something was coming right towards Sasuke at a speed no one would be able to dodge. "Watch out!" Naruto screamed and pushed his friend out of the way. Time seemed to slow down as the Uchiha stumbled away. He looked confused but then noticed something. But right when he noticed it, it had hit Naruto right in the shoulder. Right where Sasuke's heart would have been if Naruto hadn't pushed him out of the way. It was a pull that pierced the blonde and went deep through the muscle to where you could see it from the back and front. Time returned to normal as Sasuke caught his falling comrade and then vanished in a puff of smoke. "You idiot!" Sasuke yelled, throwing a glare over at the blonde who was heavily leaning against a tree. Blood stained Naruto's orange jacket and there was a hole about the size of a quarter in it. He had managed to pull the pole out, holding back a scream from the pain. To stop the bleeding, he pressed his hand against the front wound and ignored the blood that seeped through his fingers. In his mind, Kyuubi was cursing him, but began to heal the wound before her vessel could bleed to death. "Why did you do it?" Sasuke demanded and started to pace. The two had appeared high on a tree branch, at least 25 feet above the ground. He was pacing from one end of the branch, which stretched out a good distance, to the other, all the while in hearing range of the injured blonde. Naruto shrugged and winced as he said, "Once a comrade, always a comrade." Sasuke stopped and turned around to meet his eyes. "I am not your comrade. I am your enemy. Why the hell did you save me? You would have died, if I didn't," he mumbled. The skin knitted itself back together. Naruto rolled his shoulders back and got to his feet. The blood was still on his clothes and would be until he washed it out, but at least all of his wounds were healed. When he stood up, he didn't meet the Uchiha's dark eyes. Sasuke kept his glare. "Why does it matter if I live or die?" He lashed out. "We're not friends anymore, Naruto. You have to treat me like your enemy." "Maybe I don't want to," Naruto said, but it was too soft to be heard. In a louder voice, he looked up and met his friend's glare with his own, saddened blue eyes that were filled with mental pain. "Didn't you want to kill Itachi? You can't do that when you're dead. And anyways," he forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "so not like anyone would care if I died." The glare dropped from his face as the words hit him like a rock. But before he could say anything, to disagree with the blonde, Naruto shook his blonde head. "You don't need to say anything. Not like you would understand. Naruto." "Anyways," Naruto interrupted him, "I need to get back. Tsunade will be expecting me." "I don't understand," Sasuke frowned, not acting like himself who always understood everything. "Why did you come after me?" For the first time since they saw each other, the Jinchuriki host smiled. Not his usual trademark signature smile, but one that actually reached his eyes, even if it were filled with pain and sorrow. It was still a smile. "Just to talk with you. I was wanting you to come back, but, unlike the last few times, I'm not going to force you. I just wanted to talk." He shrugged his shoulders once more. "But, that's the only reason why I came. Nothing else. You know the answer is always going to be the same, Dobi." Naruto smiled. "Yeah, but it's still worth a try, Teme." He turned away from the raven and buried his hand deep into his pocket. With his other hand, he held it up in a wave, goodbye gesture. "I guess, see you around." He jumped down from the tree without waiting for a goodbye. Sasuke wiped his face of all emotions, but on the inside, where he could freely express himself without someone knowing, it was all in chaos. Too many emotions were left loose to even try and sort them out. He watched for a minute as his ex-comrade was walking further and further away before turning around on the tree branch and took off jumping to a different tree. "Stupid Dobi," he thought. "So you're just letting him go?" Kyuubi growled in an annoyed way. "After everything you did, you're not going to drag him back?" Naruto winced a bit. He wasn't used to her just yet, especially with all of the growling. Out loud, he told her, if I drag him back, he'd just leave again. He was weaving his way through the trees, walking unnormally slow. He didn't feel like running and getting to the village that fast. He wanted to have a few hours to prepare himself for what Tsunade would yell at him. "So, 3 years ago, you didn't care about that. You were a stupid, arrogant human, you know that? You never think things through. That was a few years ago, I've changed." He mumbled. "I don't want to force him back anymore. He's my best friend." He let his sentence linger in the air, just wanting to drop the subject now. This topic would be brought up again in a few hours and he just didn't feel like talking about it now. "You're just a worthless piece of shit. You had a plan and now you're just going to drop it like last night's meal. I don't even know why I. Will you just shut up, you damn fox? I'm tired of listening you insult me. Just drop the subject already." I knew he wasn't going to be coming back, but I still wanted to try. Just drop it, he yelled, his temper skyrocketing. His eyes started to turn a deep shade of red and immediately went back to his normal blue. The nine-tailed fox backed off. Not because she was scared, but because of the sadness she heard in her container's voice. She may be an all-powerful vicious demon, but she did care for her kit in a way other people and demons wouldn't understand. The blonde walked in silence, starting to calm down. He wasn't really thinking about anything, especially about how his day had gone. A mission that failed, even though he knew it would from the very start. He stayed looking ahead, the sun continuing to come up over the horizon. Birds started to wake up and go hunting for their breakfast. A few early squirrels were already on the forest floor, looking for nuts. Minutes passed by before Kyubi cleared her throat. In a soft, normal voice, she said, "You know Tsunade will be furious." "I know. You told her you'd try to bring him back. And I was lying." The blonde grunted. "I just wanted to talk to him, but she wouldn't have let me go. I'll think of something later that won't blow her top off." He ended the conversation. The fox twitched and watched him carefully. She was trying to figure out what was causing all of this. Her kid was always loud, overly obnoxious, cheerful. But now, he was the opposite, quiet and sulky. He never acted like this, except for certain occasions. She was just about to comment on that when her head lifted up so fast. She then hissed, "We have a follower." Naruto stopped walking and tensed up. He already had a kunai in his right hand as he got held it up to his chest in a defending position. One of those gang members from before? He looked around himself, being careful to hide his chakra signature, just in case. The fox shook her head. She was just about to comment on who was coming when she stiffened up and the fur on her back stood up. A figure dropped down from the trees right behind her host and as quick as lightning, held a knife up to his throat. "Who are you?" Naruto immediately growled for what seemed like the millionth time that day. He was just about to elbow the person in the gut and jump to a safe distance so he could face the intruder and ask questions, or if it came down, to fight him, when the voice stopped him. "You really off guard today, Dobi." The knife at his throat disappeared and Naruto, not taking any precaution, front flipped away and turned to face the raven-haired shinobi. "Sasuke, what are you doing here?" he demanded, wondering why he came back. He relaxed the weapon in his hand and tilted his head just a bit to the side. The Uchiha crossed his arms against his chest though he didn't meet his eyes. "I'm going back with you," he replied, though his voice sounded uncertain and off. It was like he was still trying to decide what to do. "What?" Naruto blinked, caught off guard. Maybe he misheard him. The fox blinked in surprise also. "That was unexpected. I really don't want to go back," Sasuke started. "I have to get stronger and the only way to do that is if I stayed with Orochimaru. I had to kill my brother to avenge for my clan and if I go back with you, I won't be able to." His stance matched his voice as he slightly slouched. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he asked, "So why do you want to come back?" For once, he was speechless. He opened his mouth to answer, but nothing came out. He closed his mouth and frowned. "What, is the great Sasuke Uchiha speechless?" Naruto taunted, a bit of his normal self coming back. "Why are you acting like this?" Sasuke glared now and met his friend's eyes. "I thought you'd be happy that I want to go back now." "Gee, I wonder why?" Naruto layered the sarcasm thick. "Just now, you told me you would rather stay with that snake to get stronger. If you want to get stronger, why come back to Konoha? You said so yourself, that it was holding you back. There's more ways to become stronger. What happens if I actually want to come back?" he challenged. "Why, so you can betray us again?" Naruto demanded. Their arguing reminded him of the way they used to argue back when they were still a part of Team 7. Back to when they did this on a daily basis. But, of course, this type of arguing was a lot worse and actually had a point to it. Sasuke stopped to take a deep breath through his nose. In doing so, he started to calm down so he wouldn't lose his temper. He now looked at the blonde. "Fine, forget that I even said anything," he said in that usual cold voice. He turned around and started to walk away. "Good going, Kit." Kyubi shook her head. He ignored her and held his hand up towards the retreating Uchiha. "I just don't understand any of this," he shouted in a confused voice. "Why do you suddenly want to come back after 3 years? And if I find out that it's because it's a mission for Orochimaru, I swear, I will kill you." His eyes turned a hint of red, meaning his threat. The raven turned around so fast, Naruto blinked and he was right in front of him. They were so close, they could feel one another's breath. Sasuke took Naruto by the shirt and started into his eyes, his own red, but not because of his Sharingan. Do you think that I am that low? To sneak inside my old village, pretending that I want to stay and then kill you? I may have been with Orochimaru for 3 years, but I am not that low. I have never been, and never will be. He spoke with such venom in his voice. A snake would have passed out right then and there. Naruto didn't move or flinch. In a voice similar to the other, he said, "Then why, do you want to come back?" This time, he was expecting a true answer. The grip on his shirt loosened a bit. The answer is still unclear to me, so I don't know. But when I know, I'll tell you. Just, something inside me told me to go back with you and to leave Orochimaru, while the other says don't go. His voice softened just a bit and he let go of his friend and took a step back. Fighting alongside you and then you taking that pole, it reminded me of old times. The blonde didn't say anything. He let Sasuke continue. Even though I knew you weren't going to die, just the thought made me realize something. I don't want you to die. I know I tried to kill you all those years ago, but I only had one thing in my mind. Find Orochimaru to get stronger so I could kill my brother. But, I see that I am wrong. That I have been wrong all this time. He looked away and watched the sun still rise. The only noise made between the two were their breathing. Other than that, nothing. After several minutes of silence, Naruto sighed. It's hard to trust you, you know. He replied truthfully. The raven looked back and met his blue eyes. For almost 4 years, I wanted to get you back. Every day it hurt me and I kept promising myself that I would die if I could bring you back. I didn't care that you betrayed us at first. I just wanted you back, just wanted things to return to normal. Slowly, I started to realize everything. I still wanted to get you back, but things would have been different. How can I trust you not to leave us again? How can I trust that if something happens, you won't betray us? I don't know, was what he said, but I do know that I won't betray you, Naruto. Naruto just nodded. And everyone else? If we got into a battle or something, I'll know where I'll stand. He replied with a gruff. Geez, where's that blonde Dobby I used to know and love? You're too mother-like. The blonde frowned and then rolled his blue eyes. Well, duh, I grew up. What, did you think I'd still be the same kid as before? Sasuke gave him a rare smile, giving his answer. End of flashback. Well, after bickering with one another, we started our walk back to the Leaf Village. Naruto continued on with his story. What did Tsunade and everyone else say? Sana asked, so caught up in the moment, with her eyes sparkling from the good story. The blonde smiled. Well, Grandma Tsunade was surprised that I actually had accomplished my mission and even more surprised that he came back. Like me, she didn't know whether to trust him or not, so she had 2 Anbu nin follow after him. IR was that, or being put under house arrest. He grinned. And as for everyone else, they didn't know what to do. So, for the first 3 months, no one really talked to him, except for me, Sakura and Kakashi. He wasn't even allowed to go on missions. It was just really weird. Before he had betrayed us, everyone always talked to him, about him, adored him, and then it stopped. No one talked to him. Sana frowned. I guess that must have sucked. But, after all that time, everyone started to talk to him again, right? What about Orochimaru? What did he do? The blonde shrugged. No idea. Tsunade had everyone prepared in case he decided to show his face, but we were never attacked. I still don't know if he has attacked yet. They continued to walk and soon, the trees started to thin out. It wasn't all forest Y. The ground underneath them became sand Y as the grass started to lessen. Have you ever tried to go back? She asked in a softer voice. No, he shook his head and turned his eyes away from the path. His voice softened and had a sad edge to it. If I try to go back, I'd be executed. That's what being banished means. The only people I have seen was Jiraiya, and that was a year after I was banished. Since then, I haven't seen anyone. It was quiet before Sana asked in a serious but soft voice, do you miss them? He nodded and meant it. More than you can imagine. I never told them I had left. The elders, he said the word like it was tabooed, told me I only had certain amount of time to leave the village before they would send a squad of Anbu after me. So, I went straight to my apartment to pack up and then left. Though, I wish I had said goodbye. I keep regretting that. His shoulders slumped just a bit. I wonder how they're all doing. He mumbled to himself. His heart felt heavy with all of that sadness. He feared he wouldn't be able to support it. They fell into a light silence that lasted only a few minutes. Then, Sana broke it by asking, "How about you send them a letter? Since you can't visit them, why not write them?" Naruto turned his gaze to her. I never thought about that before. But, I wouldn't know what to write. It's been 4 years. And 5 if you don't. She stated and crossed her arms in a huff. Just write that you want to see them again so you could catch up with them. Write them to meet you someplace about in the middle of our home and theirs. That way, you wouldn't be in the boundaries of the leaf. She let her arms fall down to her sides and smiled. She then took off running. Over her shoulder, she called back to him, "I'll meet you at home." And took the lead. "You know, that isn't a bad idea," Kyuubi purred. "I know that you've been wanting to see them again, for quite some time. So, how about you send them a letter?" Naruto shrugged. "I don't know. You're afraid about what their reactions would be." It wasn't a question but a clear statement. She knew her kid from inside out and could read him like a closed book. His shoulders sagged lower and he bowed his head. He could feel tears threatening to form in his eyes. "Kind of," he admitted. "It's just, I left without saying goodbye. I regret not saying goodbye to them. But, Kyuubi sighed. "After the party, send them a letter, Kit. It could do you some good and help. Since you can't go to them, meet them halfway." Her voice clicked off so she could give him some privacy to his own thoughts. Maybe, he thought, I wonder what they'll do, what their reactions could be. He could almost picture Sakura punching the living shit out of him and Sasuke. Well, he wouldn't be too happy. Naruto shook his head to clear it and then he rolled his shoulders back. He looked ahead of himself to see no one, not even a speck in the distance. That meant Sana was way ahead of him. He took a deep, relaxing breath before he took off running to catch up with her.
That's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, share and do comments.